You're listening to Character Crusade Unbound, episode number 5. I'm Stu.
And I'm Joe.
And I'm Matt.
Updates and announcements, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 5 of Character Crusade Unbound, Season 1, which is random Skyrim roleplay. For those of you who are listening to this in the future, you time travelers out there.
Which would be now.
Which would be now.
It would be now. Thank you for listening now, time travelers.
Yes. All you need to do is go to unbound.charactercrusade.com, and from there, I'm not going to say on that page, because there's a good chance that I will be changing the way that page looks every season, so there are links to all the season information.
Oh.
See what I'm saying? But you can go there, and you're going to find links to the season and the play rules for that season. So if you want to play along with Random Skyrim Roleplay Season 1 of Character Crusade Unbound, you can find the rules there. And then all you got to do is create a character following those rules and then do your roleplay. Follow along with this podcast, which will give you kind of updates and things to listen to as you go through, give you ideas for how to play that through, general roleplay ideas, as well as ones that are specific to the challenge that we have for the season. And then if you want, you can also check out the Discord server, where we've got lots of stuff going on there. We're going to be looking for ways that we can take the information from this season that other people have been producing about their characters and archive that, so that people can go back and review the Season 1 information whenever they want to, and they can see everyone who participated and the characters they created and links to their materials and all that kind of good stuff. So we're going to have some work to do around that, but it'll come together, and I'm confident that it'll be pretty cool. The other thing that you can do, too, is if you want some examples, some specific examples of how certain things work and how at least I go about making decisions in game as they apply to this, you can also watch the Unbound Let's Play. There's a Season 1 Unbound Let's Play featuring Raiden. So you can check that out as well. So we're going to try to bind all of these things together each season into a package you can use to kind of follow along at any time, even if you're not doing it live at the time we are. So that is important. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning is thank you to all of you who are supporting this podcast and the other podcasts that we've got going. Now, the best thing that you can do to support us is get out on iTunes and give us ratings and reviews on iTunes. It's absolutely essential to making sure that we can acquire a new audience and find people who would share in a love of what it is that we're doing and would enjoy this content. So get onto iTunes, give us a rating and review. Doesn't cost you anything but a little bit of time, and we really do appreciate it, and it makes a huge difference in the podcast community. So, big difference.
And if you decide to get a QR code tattoo of something that sends people to that iTunes page, that's up to you.
Yeah.
That's up to you.
We don't require it.
But it would be cool.
It would.
For someone else.
For someone
else.
Yes, because in the future, people will go, what's a QR code?
Yeah.
Like maybe tomorrow?
Yeah.
What's a QR code?
So the other thing that's kind of exciting is that this week we launched a brand new podcast. We are now officially a podcast network.
Yay!
Yes.
Cool. Yes, we did.
Yay, us.
CouchWarrior Network is proud to sponsor A-Bomb Radio. We are sponsoring A-Bomb Radio now. That podcast it's in the process of being fully indexed by iTunes, but it was actually launched, I want to say, on Saturday night, perhaps. But if you go out to charactercrusade.com and go to our podcast page, you'll see A-Bomb Radio listed there. You can get to the web archive for A-Bomb Radio, as well as finding links out to YouTube. The episodes are out there on iTunes. You just have to kind of go look for them. As soon as indexing is complete, our hope is that you will begin to find A-Bomb Radio episodes when you search for audio drama. So this comes under the category of audio drama, And this stuff is wonderful. It's produced by Atomic Wolf. I've done some voice work for him, and we are proud to be able to help him get his content out into iTunes. So,
Sweet.
yeah, feel free to check that out. Also, ratings and reviews, extremely popular and helpful there.
And some
So
really
we don't do
awesome
that.
content to listen to.
Yeah, really just wonderful
it's really
content.
super fun.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. So we've got 5 episodes out there to start with, and we're going to be launching a new episode probably every week. He's got quite an archive that we need to get out there, and then he's constantly creating new things. So right now we're focused on Fallout-related stories, but we'll be expanding beyond that to also include some work that he's been doing. What is it? In the BioShock realm as well.
Cool.
That would
He's
make
doing
sense.
BioShock stuff, which is really great.
Kind of the same
So-
gritty feel. You can write characters in that space that way.
Mhm, yeah. BioShock is a really interesting game. I've enjoyed that one thoroughly. I love the atmosphere of that game. It's very cool. So a lot of exciting things going
It's just
on.
the sewers of Fallout, right?
Well, kind of. I mean, it all takes place underwater.
Yeah.
At least the first 2 episodes are the first 2, I guess, installments of that game. The third one took place in the sky. I haven't played that one, but I've heard it's good too. So,
Excellent.
last but not least, you can certainly find all the information you need to about this podcast, everything that the 3 of us are working on out on CharacterCrusade.com, as well as a schedule of all of our live streams coming up over the next month or so. So if you want to go and check that out, it provides you with links out to the pre-scheduled YouTube events. So you can set alarms on those events and make sure you never miss any.
Please do set the alarms.
Yeah, you got to set the alarms. It's not going to alert you any other way. So that is helpful if you do that. And then, of course, if you want to support what we're doing, you can go to patreon.charactercrusade.com and you can support our Patreon campaign. We've had 3 or 4 new supporters over the last 2 or 3 weeks. We really appreciate all that. It's been really wonderful. We're starting to kind of see support ramp up again as this Unbound concept starts to gel a little bit for us.
If not enough people support us, we will never get to finish writing Highlander the musical.
That's a dream.
Yeah,
It is a dream.
We won't be able to achieve that dream without it.
I know.
I'm getting sad just thinking about it.
Yeah, after all the work that Matt's put in already. I mean,
Untold minutes,
Untold minutes.
tens of miles.
tens of seconds,
Okay.
tens of miles.
All right.
Yes.
So
All right.
that is it, ladies and gentlemen. So it's time to get into our first segment. Let's get into character craft. Welcome everyone to character
Wow,
craft.
that's going to be a tough one to cut out.
Oh yeah, you'll dampen that a little
Look
bit.
for that spike.
I'd like to give my character update first,
Yes, please go.
and I'm done.
Excellent.
Nice.
Well done. I love the role play.
Incredibly succinct. Yes.
Yes, the role
absolutely.
play is fantastic.
It's like some modern art. You look at it,
Mm-hmm.
you may or may not see something, and
Yeah.
it's all up to your own interpretation.
Well, Matthew has inspired us that in season 2, our season 2 challenge is going to be to create a character and not play it at all. And we're gonna go at least 6 episodes on that.
What have you done to not level up this week?
Well, let's see. I drank a bunch of beer and I watched a lot of movies. And
I stayed there and had a really long conversation with all of the I don't know, guards in White Helm.
in White Helm.
White Helm.
I like White Helm better.
White Helm. I was
that's
wearing
good.
a White Helm.
Winter Run.
Winter run.
Well, now that
House.
we've gotten through Matt's update, it seems we still have a little time left over. So, Joe, maybe you want to talk a little bit about your not character experiences for the last 2 weeks.
I apologized
Boy.
a lot.
Man, where not to start.
That was really good. You're almost keeping up
Very
with me.
quick. Very quick.
No, I've had a little bit of time to play a little bit more than Matt, but not quite as much as Stu.
Which is difficult to do. I genuinely sometimes wonder if Stu isn't just existing in sort of Skyrim VR. Which has got to look really weird to his coworkers sometimes, but
Yes. I'm just going to rebrand this to Stu Unbound.
Why is Stu always crouched?
Yeah. Stunbound.
What's that thing over his head? Sneak increased? What?
So there's this marker over his head all the time.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, I don't even remember where I left off. So I spent actually quite a bit of time in Whiterun. Mm-hmm. Now I had to think about how to say it. Thanks, Matt.
There's Whitehelm and River Karth, and other people are giving us stuff
Yes.
here.
Uh-huh.
And Rorik's Hold. Actually, I spent a lot of time in Whiterun, just kind of putting everything in order and getting. I actually bought the house. I bought Bree's home. I decided I wasn't sure what kind of house I wanted or where, but in the end, I ended up getting a version that modified Bree's home from Eleonora.
Sure.
And put that in. Got that all built up. So now my money's all gone.
Perfect.
So I am out hunting bandits and raiding tombs. So that's we're following the money. So
Okay. Following the money.
the one thing I did do is I figured it was more lucrative to sell Sadia off, so I ratted her out.
Nice.
Oh my gosh. Nice.
It's the first time I've actually ever done that.
What a classy
So-
guy.
And in the end, because I've never gone through the dialogue of what happens when you do that,
Yeah.
I didn't feel nearly as bad as I thought I would.
Oh,
Right.
They make you feel okay about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Like you're
Okay.
really doing their
The
people
right
a
thing.
service.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
you're doing the right thing because of this treacherous woman.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know who to believe anymore, but I got some clinky out of it. So shiny clinky.
Yeah, that's right.
I did run into Cicero and decided to help him out.
Yeah, how'd that go?
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Not too bad. Again, seemed like a good opportunity to make a little coin, which it was.
Mhm. Did you get that cart fixed, or what'd you do?
Yeah, I went up to what's his name,
Mm-hmm.
and told him to go help the guy out.
Cart fixer man.
Yeah, cart fixer
That's what
guy.
they call him.
Yep,
Yeah.
he runs cart fixer farms.
Yep. That's right. Yeah. Cart fixer estates, I think it's
Yeah,
called.
yeah, something like that. It's just
yeah.
right
It's
out
like
of
the end of the game of life, right?
it's-
Cards
yeah.
versus
yeah,
things.
right out of outside of Runhelm there.
Right.
Right.
I'm never
Run
gonna. I've made something interesting for
You
once.
did.
Riverstone.
Oh, now you make everything interesting.
The
Matt.
funny thing is you can mix these names up and they all still sound great and totally
they
legit.
totally work. Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and so if they're used in the next version of anything, Elder
Sure.
Scrolls wise, then we should get
Yeah.
some credit for that.
Oh, yeah. Next time you're in Markreath, you're going to really like it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
All right.
Okay, so you did some stuff there.
So, yep, we got our
cart.
house. We sold off Sadia.
Sold off or sold out?
Well, sold out, I guess. It all amounts to the same in the end, I guess.
All right.
Just not a very scrupulous person.
Sold off sounds more like slavery. I
Kind
guess,
of.
doesn't
It
it?
does.
Kind of does, but
Yeah.
yeah. So, all right. Well, maybe I should consider revising my lingo on that. But no, that is actually the first time I've ever gone through that piece of the dialogue. So
All right.
that was kind of interesting. So let's see what else. No like 48, 52 hour mammoth sessions. So
Yeah, me either.
I opted not for any of that.
I still think that was hilarious.
Are you just thinking about my meat?
The
Well,
scale
it's
of it.
The
I
idea
mean,
that
yeah.
you could describe a mammoth session. I was just wondering,
Yeah.
after you were carving your meat there, I just.
Well, yeah, when he says 48-hour mammoth session, he really means mammoth.
It's
I
not,
mean,
not
actual
just
mammoth.
like some sort
I
of
do.
tantric mammoth session, I guess.
Right. Yeah. And I would have thought
And neither one of you batted an eye.
Neanderthal Joe would have enjoyed slaying more mammoths.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay.
It's only 48%.
Continue.
Actually, 51. But
51. Oh, it's close.
I'm more than 51% of the population.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway,
Well, we've been talking about the results of Joe's DNA testing.
my 23andMe testing has put me over above 51% of the people. I have more than 51% of the people in Neanderthal genes. So that's cool.
Which, let's be fair, that would be a great product if you could sell
Well,
Neanderthal genes.
Now,
a little wider in the hip, the inseam shorter.
It'd be made from mammoth skin, of course.
Of course. Only the
Now, in
finest.
all fairness, that's of the people who have taken that.
Yes,
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's far less than the general population.
probably true.
So, okay, where did we end up? So, no
More
mammoth sessions.
No mammoth sessions.
No mammoth sessions. We sold Sadie out, and I am now. Oh, I went to the what's his name? Red
Ragnar.
sword guy.
Red sword guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
What the-
That guy.
All of a sudden-
Amron? The Red Guard?
No.
Okay,
no.
well-
the quest to go get
Oh my!
the sword.
Yeah, I remember that one.
The Draugr
The-
with the
yeah,
you need
the-
the sword to put in the thing to open
Yeah.
up the deal.
Oh, yeah.
So you can go kill the thing.
Mm-hmm. Red Bird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The legend of Red.
Hawk. Osprey. I'm sorry, Osprey.
Yeah, the red thing.
Yeah, gotcha.
So
So I know the
Yep.
I know the one you're
yeah, we did that.
Bird of Prey.
You know, you're just randomizing things, and
It's nothing
just
random
as-
about it. I
it's
mean,
not helping at all.
they're all from the same genus.
Red tail.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Now, what the hell was that? What quest was that? I just finished
Red
that
Eagle?
one up.
Legend of Red Eagle.
Is it Red Eagle?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. I tap danced around it a lot there.
Yeah, you did, and I
Yeah.
just wasn't picking up what you're throwing down. So
Usually you do, but
I usually try
I mean, Osprey, that was a little obtuse.
Red Osprey.
The Legend of Red Osprey.
Legend of the Red Osprey.
Yes. Of course, I knew that.
So I did that.
All right.
So yeah, we're kind of making now we've kind of covered most of the northern section. So now we're more in the middle part near Whiterun, and
Okay.
we'll see what kind of swath we can cut across there.
So the black tide of greed washes ever southward.
Yes. Oh, we
Yes.
took Lydia and brought her into the merry band of misfits. So
Oh, good. That's good. I
Um,
bet she fit right in.
oh yeah, for sure.
Just needed to go for a walk. Took her along with.
Yeah, actually. So when I bought the house, and Unbound kind of finishes all this stuff in the background for
Yeah.
you. So when I got the house, of course, there she's waiting at the door for me to
Oh, yeah.
be my house Carl. And
Mm-hmm.
Thane. All right, why don't you wait here? So I had her wait in Dragon's Reach for a little while, but then I decided to bring her off. So it actually works out really nice because now I've got 2 tanks, a magic user, and myself. I've got actually 4 followers again. So what is it? I've got the Bard, Lydia. So Skjarn, Lydia, Vulgar, whatever his
Yeah,
name is. He's the
Vulgar.
magic user.
Yep, Tolgar, I think.
Who else do I got with me now? I got one more and I can't
You
think.
said Skjarn, right?
Yep.
And the other one started with a B.
Oh yeah, Belrand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Where's
So-
Balrond from?
Oh, where did I pick him up at? He's actually a vanilla, I believe.
Windhelm?
That sounds right.
Red Light District?
Just going around picking up followers now, are we? That's how it goes.
Well, they don't call them followers for nothing. They're just. I look back and there they are. Of course, when you've got such a handsome man as Van,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard
Van
not to
the
pick up
man.
followers.
That's right. That's right.
I can't feed all of you. No way.
Yeah. Someone
but-
says winking skeever. Solitude, winking skeever.
Oh, yes.
Those
yes.
don't rhyme.
Yes. You are correct. I mean, it's close to Windhelm, but.
Yeah.
So,
Actually, that'd be a good password, wouldn't it?
what's that? Winking Skeever?
Solitude, winking skeever. Come on.
I want to build like a new tavern mod to be right on the shores of Lake Ilinalta. You know what I'd call it?
Uh-oh.
I don't know.
Stinking Beaver.
No.
Would that be great? I mean, it's almost worth building just so you could call it that.
Just for that.
Yeah.
The Stinking Beaver. Anyways,
Anywho,
chalk that up. Someone get on that.
I'm never going to live this down. You're the home of the Imperial cloaks
You're doomed. You're doomed.
for the rest of my gaming life.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah, they've got a
Thank you all.
like a triangle with a bear kind of thing in the
Yeah.
middle.
Yeah. Yeah, Matt's a different sort of guy. I mean, he likes to play Rimsky.
Rimsky.
That's
Totally,
his favorite.
Rimsky is my favorite. I think nothing. You know, I have not hit a major quest yet, other than the Red Osprey.
That's insane to me.
I think, almost 27th level, if not. Oh, I think I just cleared 27th level.
27.
Okay,
Correct.
that's good.
So I'm at level 27.
I'm
That's
still
good.
at level 0.
That's okay.
So those
That's okay.
followers are letting you have some experience.
Yeah, well, a lot of it comes from maintaining their gear.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Who's serving who here?
I know. I know. So maintaining their gear and doing a lot of trading with the merchants.
I could just see Van. Polish your boots, sir.
We can never get anything done. Everybody's gear has to be totally polished.
Uh,
It's really difficult to sneak up on anybody when
It's
we're
such
this
a
shiny.
misfit mongrel-looking group. It's like, whatever's the best you're going to wear.
Yeah.
Because
they-
unlike a lot of role plays, it seems almost unseemly that they would have matching gear because they just wouldn't.
Sure.
It's whatever's best.
I'm just
So-
wondering if this high polished chrome gear might be dangerous in battle. If either you can use it to blind people or people can see, oh, look, here they come again
Yeah.
across the valley. Prepare,
Lydia,
they'll be here
turn.
tomorrow.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah. So actually, I did. So when I went up the perk tree to the left with Ordinator, it gives you an option to have a favorite merchant kind of thing. So
Okay.
you can get better deals with that specific merchant.
All right.
So fittingly, I went with Numbnuts in Whiterun. I'm so bad with names.
Oh, the Breton guy?
Yeah, the one that'll sell his sister.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Really?
Uh-huh.
yeah, he's such a
I don't know that I've
sleazeball.
tried to
Well, you
buy
guys
anything
ought to
about
get along great.
Yeah,
though. I mean,
yeah.
you sold Sadia, so
Yeah, pretty much.
you got a lot in common.
Yeah, we
Did
do.
you sell
We do.
Sadia to him?
No.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. To a wandering group of red guards.
Because they
Cure
asked
warrior.
me to.
Cure warrior.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you seem upstanding. I believe you.
I believe you.
Why would they have lied? Yeah, so we struck up a deal with that dude.
Okay.
The hell is his name?
Bellathor.
Thank you.
People will
Bellathor.
remember Numbnuts more than they'll remember Bellathor.
Yeah, well, Numbnuts is certainly more fitting.
Everyone else
Yeah.
here knows that it's Bellathor, but
I
didn't.
don't pay attention
sort
to
of
the
a
names.
tertiary character, right? I mean, you don't really have to remember Bellathor in the grand scheme of
No,
things.
but you always do because he's such an ass. He's just
Yeah.
creepy
You
and
just-
slimy.
Yeah, you got to just remember he has stuff you need.
He
Kind of,
does.
sometimes.
So, but it seemed fitting because, neither one would probably trust each other all that much. So,
I have got to be honest. Skyrim does not seem like a trusting kind of place. So
it doesn't, yet everyone will tell you everything you ask for.
that's
mean,
true.
they'll
That
just
doesn't necessarily mean
strike
that
up
that's trusting.
conversations.
I just think that most of them are a little bit pent up and they need to talk
Well,
to somebody.
Maybe that,
Yeah.
that could be. Maybe that's
Yeah.
it. That's it.
Yeah.
So we've got a good relationship with Bellathor. We're kind of basing ourselves out of Whiterun. So,
Okay.
White Helm.
yep, White Helm.
Nice. Excellent.
And now I am actually way over near Markarth
Wow.
because of the Red Eagle thing.
Oh, okay. Going after the old ready.
So-
So you didn't just get the quest; you're pursuing it.
I'm pursuing and pursued and got. So
Oh,
I finished.
you got it.
So that's kind of where I left off. I finished and completed.
All right.
I sort of
So-
think that Draugr has to produce a Red Eagle lager, don't you think?
Oh,
For
sure.
an amber.
An
Yeah,
amber.
some kind of an amber.
Absolutely.
I think that's a great idea.
Absolutely.
Red Eagle
Yeah.
amber. Yes.
Red Eagle
Celebrate that gruesome torture,
amber. Right.
the blood eagle. Yes,
Yeah, that's not good.
blood eagle's bad.
I'll pass.
You don't want those.
Good advertising campaign, though.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Very eye-catching.
It is that,
Uh huh.
You
which
can't
I think
forget
was
our product.
in partly the point.
Yeah, you could have like a winged Draugr on the label. It's like those aren't wings.
Those aren't wings. What are?
Skin spread up.
Oh, man.
Gross.
Yeah, not good.
Not good.
So
All right.
that's about where I ended up with Van. So
All right.
I haven't gotten a ton of playtime, but a little bit.
27.
So
Not too shabby.
not too shabby. Like I say, I haven't actually started any quests. I haven't come across any dragons yet. I have absorbed a few walls, but
Okay.
that's about it. So I'm kind of waiting for that to.
Which, if you didn't
Drop.
understand Skyrim, having someone say "I've absorbed a few walls" is kind of a strange thing to say out of context. But yes,
Well,
Right.
so is mammoth meat, but
that's true. That's true.
Right.
or mammoth snout.
Or Markreath.
Wonder if I could work in "I've absorbed a few walls" into casual conversation tomorrow.
Yeah, well that'll
Oh,
be
yeah.
that'll be
Ooh,
like
maybe
a,
that's the homework.
a safe word. Figure out how to make that a safe word. Or phrase. Yeah.
I've absorbed a few.
So
Yeah.
not the most action-packed, thrilling update, but it's kind of where it's at.
You got some stuff going.
Got some
Well,
stuff
Van
going.
is doing what Van does, right? He's going after the money. He's pursuing that. I think it's kind of miraculous too how you've been able to get to level 27 by focusing mostly on stuff that has nothing to do with major quest lines.
No, well, yeah, a lot of
Not
the
fighting dragons.
leveling, like I say, has come through
Shining boots.
crafting, through smithing, alchemy, speech.
Mm-hmm.
Speech, oddly enough, because that's a tough one to.
Mhm.
That doesn't come around very well, but
Mhm.
I was lucky enough to pick up a few items to kind of help me along the way as I went, such as the training circlets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That give you a little bit of a boost as you use different things. So
Boost.
amulet of Dibella to improve my speech and stuff like
Oh,
that.
that's
So
good, yeah.
they kind of came along at the right time early,
Mhm.
so I could leverage that a
If
little
only
bit.
you could wear like 9 amulets at once, right? Kind of go with the Mr.
I think there is a mod out there.
That would be amazing.
I think there is a mod out there that will let you wear
to wear multiple.
tons. I mean,
Does it show?
it doesn't. That would be kind of
Stacked
cool, though.
What would be neat is make it so that
11.
when you load the mod, it randomly determines how many are safe to wear. So, you can wear 3 at a time, but then if you put that fourth one on, there's like a magicka overload and your head explodes or something.
or no matter what you do, you're immediately encumbered at like 100.
Well, what does it do? Like, I could just see like down the line a bunch of people reporting cases of throat cancer. Like
Too much magic, right?
I just wore this necklace of Dibella my entire life, and I got throat cancer. I was like, now you'd have these big controversies, right, where everybody'd be swearing off magic.
Lawsuits against Talos.
There you go.
Yeah,
I was practicing my shouts.
yeah, exactly.
I couldn't shout anymore.
I shouted my larynx right out.
Too many amulets.
I know. All right, well, that's a good update.
So-
I think Van is doing what Van does best.
Yeah, and I'm woe to say that I have not recorded any audio pieces for Van in a while too, so
Whoa.
I'm behind on a few things.
That's all right. You've been kicking out some episodes of your other story, though. So,
I have. I've been trying to kind of reconnect with that storyline. So
Yeah, it seems like you've done that successfully.
yeah, so
We got a few more episodes in the last 2-week interval, right?
Yeah, things are getting interesting. So
Good. Excellent. All right. Well, as far as
How about you?
Raiden goes, again, I'm also trying to remember where we left off last time around. I think it was... Boy, what had we done? So, it may have been the Moth Priest.
My God, Stu, what have you
That's
done?
what it was. Yeah. At the end of the last episode, we had rescued the Moth Priest, and we're going to head back to Fort Dawnguard. So, as it turned out, headed back to Fort Dawnguard, the priest just kind of appears there. You can't accompany him back. The game just kind of teleports him there, and then he's there when you show up. I was hoping I could escort him back, but that wasn't an option. So
That's weird. A lot of times you can.
Yeah, I know. It's funny because the game will actually bring him out to the main road, but then he just stops there. He doesn't go anywhere after that. And then, you kind of just have to leave him behind, and when you go to Fort Dawnguard, he's there already.
Oh, yeah.
So what we did is just kind of...
And he doesn't teach you to teleport?
No, he doesn't. And they imply that he doesn't teleport either.
He's just really fast.
Which is it's sort of weird, right? Because up to this point, they give you the impression that he has been traveling with an entourage of bodyguards and stuff. And now, he's going all the way back to Fort Dawnguard, unescorted and
from where
no
again?
Problems. From all the way over by Dragon Bridge.
Oh, that's a pretty good jaunt.
Yeah, I mean, that's most of the way across Skyrim.
It's like the lower half of the map, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So,
well, no, Dragon Bridge is way up north.
Well, it's north and
north and
he's
west.
Traveling from kind of the far northwest all the way to the southeast extreme southeast of the map. So he's literally going across Skyrim diagonally. Anyways,
walking on a horse
with foot wraps.
I had to let that go. No, they're little sandals.
Are you walking or are you on a horse?
They have little wings on them.
Because the horse, you can actually take a direct route.
You could if you have Skyrim horses, the most amazing creatures in the world.
Yeah, may as well be Pegasus.
Gecko. I just didn't know how long around you would need to go if you were going completely diagonal. It's a long walk.
That way is not too bad. I mean, you don't have huge mountain ranges.
Yeah. At that point, with Dragon Bridge as your starting point, you can choose to go north of the mountains or south of the mountains.
Right.
And, avoid traversing the mountains completely. But you just have to decide, are you going to parallel them to the north or south?
Right.
In this particular case, I had come to that location from the northern side. So I went back towards Riften by the south side. And, of course, that worked out really well because it brings me back to Whiterun where I can get some more training in restoration. I availed myself of restoration training a couple of more times and was able to...
In Whiterun?
In Whiterun,
yeah. Who does restoration in Whiterun?
Danica Pure Spring.
Okay. The priestess in...
Priestess of Kine.
Yeah, okay.
So... Kinnereth, I guess, in this case. So I was able to get the restoration training up to 58 through training.
Ooh, okay, wow.
So
that's pretty good.
Got to 58. My goal is to get to level 60. So I had 2 more to go, and I acquired those 2 levels in a completely different way. So anyways.
Did you steal them?
I did not steal them.
No.
I thought about it. But then I thought, well, that's not how this game works. And so then I kind of gave up on that. So wouldn't be the first time I thought that kind of thing. So back to Fort Dawnguard, we get the reading of the first Elder Scroll, right? And that gives us the direction that we need to find 2 more Elder Scrolls. So at this point, I kind of made a role play decision. I decided it was time for me to put some emphasis on the fact that Goldir was starting to object to the idea on principle of traveling with a vampire and allowing vampires to go free, which is what Raiden had been doing. So what I did is I just left Goldir behind there. Basically, that was my way of expressing the idea that he was refusing to travel with Raiden at this point because of their differences in ideology.
Okay.
And then also, after having gone through this experience with the Moth Priest of reading the scroll, telling us what that we needed to find 2 more scrolls, right? We got the information that kind of told us that there was a dragon Elder Scroll out there that could be found and where to start looking for it. But when that conversation is over, then Serana approaches you and says, "Hey, I know where that other scroll is."
Oh,
and
okay.
when you ask her about it, you have a dialogue option to basically say, "Well, why didn't you say something before?"
Right.
And I use that as a role play trigger to say at this point Raiden's getting disgusted with her because she's never telling the full truth.
Right.
Right? And so at that point, I said, "Okay, you go along to where this other scroll is and I will meet you there." And that was my way of expressing the fact that he was done with her and just wanted to be left alone for a while.
All right.
So now he's traveling solo, and most of the adventuring that I did between episode 4 and episode 5 of this podcast was solo adventuring. So then, at that point, it was hitting the road to go to Winterhold. It was Winterhold. Because you got to go up to the Mage College and talk to someone at the Mage College to get some clues as to where the Dragon Scroll would be.
Oh, okay.
All right. So headed up that way. There was one diversion along the way, but I can't for the life of me remember what that was. That's where I kind of went through Whiterun the second time and got my second round of training to bring me up to 58, I think it was.
Oh, okay.
Something like that. But headed up there to Winterhold and talked to Ura Groshub, the librarian at the Arcanium, and he informed me of the fact that something had been written about that Elder Scroll by Septimus Cygnus. So then it's off to find Septimus Cygnus.
You didn't, I hope,
stuff.
mess up anything in his library.
No, I didn't.
He's a little surly about that.
Yeah, we had a long talk about it, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had a long talk about it. I assured him I wasn't going to mess with anything just because I didn't really have any expertise in the library sciences, and it wasn't my business. So he went and got the tomes for me.
Oh, okay.
And I read them very carefully.
What did you do while he was away getting your books?
I waited patiently.
Create a diversion.
I waited patiently. He brings them back, and he brings you back 2 books. One is a book that details the negative or the ill effects of the Elder Scrolls on the human body.
All right.
And the other one is this crazy-ass tome written by Septimus Cygnus.
Oh, okay.
Ruminations on the Elder Scroll.
Gotcha.
Read that, and then it was off to find him.
All right.
So found Septimus Cygnus.
On an Elder Scroll.
Yep.
It sounds like something that would have come out of, like some sort of live poetry night.
Yeah, I know. Well, and that's exactly the
Instead of
kind of shit
variations
that
on a
Septimus
theme,
Cygnus
right?
would do, right? He's totally that kind of dude.
Have you ever attacked anyone in the library? I mean, like a Urag or anything?
No,
I'm really curious what kind of a badass he really is when you piss him off.
Something tells me that inside the Arcanium, he's impossible to defeat.
I might have to try that.
Anything I don't know, I just need to walk over there and learn it.
It would be interesting to see if you could use something like amazing follower tweaks to make him a follower.
I bet you could.
Oh.
If you make him a follower, I wonder if he would give you those book finding quests while you're out on the road.
I don't know. That's a good question.
How
Could be
long would it
interesting.
take to read all of the things in the Arcanium?
Forever.
Like, are you allowed to walk around? I mean, someone who's
You know-
harvesting mammoth meat for 52 hours. Can you?
It's kind of odd. The Arcanium is an interesting place because it's got all these bookshelves, but they're all locked.
Yeah.
You can't open any of them.
That's why I was, because I know that there's got to be a way to get in there. I'm just wondering is there a mod that unlocks it?
There
can
is,
you learn
actually.
everything that you
I believe
need
there
just by
is.
opening a book?
But I don't think it's got. I don't think the Arcanium has all of the books all the in-game books in there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's got a lot of them,
it
but
does have a lot.
and there's a lot of books just kind of laying around the main area that you
Right.
can pick up
Sounds
and
like-
read.
how do you
and
know
stuff.
that wasn't a player home at some point, and he's just been questing and getting books and coming back, and
I don't know.
Well, it's his home.
Well,
Yeah.
I know. I'm just saying, like you think about the first few times I played characters, I would have to go find barrels to hide everything, and maybe this just was the ultimate stash of books that he found in 10 years.
I don't know. Maybe that's how that library was formed. Urag Groshub just donated his personal archive. Of,
Right.
these are all my favorite paperbacks. So
They wouldn't take him at the place down the street. Do you want him?
yeah. So went to find Septimus Cygnus, and then when you talk to him, he tells you where you have to go for the delvings and the piercings and so forth into the Black Reaches. And so then it was kind of fun because it was a solo adventure down through some Dwemer ruins and into Black Reach, and I did all that Black Reach goodness, right? Cleared out the fortress that's in there, found the tower, got the scroll, got the hell out of there. Went back to Septimus, and I had the scroll, of course. I went back to Septimus and gave him, he wanted his special lexicon, which I gave him. And then he gave me what I needed to go on yet another quest, which was to get the different
So
Mer
you
blood.
would have run into Hermaeus.
Yes. After I get the second quest from Septimus, that's when Hermaeus Mora
Shows up. And,
and tries to entice you to become.
So, I guess from a character standpoint, how would you react or deal with those shenanigans?
Well, that was interesting. I mean, I've been defaulting to Raiden being defiant.
Yep. Okay.
Just because he has been any encounter that he's had with the Daedric Prince, and he's had quite a few now. It's always been something around control, manipulation, depravity.
Yeah, they like
you
that.
know, all this kind of stuff, right? I mean, that's what they are all about.
Right.
And I see him as being a pretty idealistic individual in certain ways. So I was just kind of naturally defiant of him and kind of ignored that. It's in the first encounter you have with him, he's basically setting things up, but he's not necessarily making any demands of you yet. The second time you encounter him, then he starts making demands. And I actually had the second encounter with him as well.
Oh, okay.
So what I did is he sends you on this quest where you got to gather up the different types of Mer blood. There's different types. There's 5 different types of Mer blood.
Yep.
I was able to pretty quickly get 4 types, and I was short 1. And so at that point I thought, well, he's not going to go out of his way or anything like that to try and find a Bosmer to fill this thing out. He's going to go about his business.
Right.
And we're gonna discover a Bosmer naturally along the way at some point is what we're gonna do. So at that point I thought, okay, it's been enough solo questing. Let's go find Serana now and get our hands on that last and final scroll. So I met up with her at Castle Volkihar, and then it was that big dive into the dungeon below Castle Volkihar.
Yep.
In the lead up to entering the Soul Cairn. So
yeah, that's kind of a substantial piece.
Oh, it is
of content. There.
It is. It's a nice little dungeon area, and a lot of the vast majority of the content that I created between last episode and this one was all live streamed. So
right, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
I caught a little bit of it.
Yeah, a lot of you were attending in those. I really appreciate it. I did a lot of live streaming over the last couple of weeks, so that was pretty fun. But got into the Soul Cairn, and I kind of blazed through that stuff. I wanted to get through the Soul Cairn stuff as quickly as possible. I didn't want to spend a lot of time lingering there. So we went straight to the fortress and found Valerica and released her, defeated Durnavir the dragon, and got our hands on that last scroll.
Cool.
Which I can't remember the name of that one. The first one, I think the one Serana has is the Blood Scroll, then there's the Dragon Scroll, and I can't remember the third one.
I don't know any of the scrolls, to be honest.
Anyway, Got my hands on that. Now, the important thing is that to get into the Soul Cairn, you got to make a decision. And this was, I think, a big moment in terms of role play.
Oh, right.
To get into the Soul Cairn, you have to do one of two things. You either have to become a vampire,
Right.
or you have to give up a portion of your soul into a soul gem so it can be offered up as kind of an offering to the ideal masters so that you can get inside there. Anybody who's living who tries to get into the Soul Cairn will be killed.
Huh.
So you have to either go in as dead or you have to give a portion of your soul as an offering. And given those two choices, I actually elected to make him a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
I thought
Oh, the irony.
he's
it kind of is the ultimate.
yeah,
Oh.
it is. It is in a way, right? But I started thinking about it, and we've talked about this a lot. What are his motivations? You know, and it was all about his motivations. Why does he slay the undead? He slays the undead when they're a threat to the living, right?
Right.
And that's what has put him in direct conflict with the Dawn Guard, because the Dawn Guard's ideology is slay all undead.
Yeah.
And his ideology is slay the undead that are threatening the living.
Right.
And so in this case, when I think of it in those terms, he does not necessarily, he looks at a person like Serana and says, this is a person who is a vampire, yes, but she still has all of her faculties. She's not crazy. She's not attacking people. She's not threatening anyone.
Yeah, she's not feral.
No.
Right.
No. And she's not like her father. She's
Right.
not on this quest for world domination
Right.
and conquest. So, and then when you juxtapose that, compare it to the idea of actually giving up a portion of his soul, I think to him it became more important to have his soul intact than it did for him to
Right.
not become a vampire.
Taking it from that kind of point of view, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you could somehow divide it
Right.
into 7 pieces.
Yes, that would be amazing.
Amulet and a cup.
Right.
A Horcrux,
Right.
Oh.
the crux of horrors. Horse crux.
Horse crux.
Yay!
So, yeah, that was kind of how I envisioned that decision. Now, what I like about that decision is I like the irony of it, but under the circumstances, it felt like the right move from a role play perspective. And I really, really like how it has complicated his life after. And so that got me into the Soul Cairn, and I did all of that stuff and got out. But that's where once you get out, that's where the real drama of being a vampire, where the real ramifications of being a
It's
vampire
not all
start
that big
to
a
happen.
deal when you're in the cairn, but
No, because anyone else you talk to in there is a vampire or a ghost.
yeah,
It doesn't
I mean,
really.
there's no one.
They don't give a shit.
No,
So
not really.
I know, right?
Just thinking about the decision that you have to make to either become a vampire or to give up part of your soul, and it's like after you've been the only person to actually read the terms of service of anything.
Did you
Sort of
read
choice
the
you
end
have to
user
make.
license agreement?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Check the
hang on.
box.
I have to become a vampire
I
now?
got to check the box. Yeah.
I really have to. I agree. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
So
Just let me into the soul
I really
darn
want
it.
this product.
it gets messy, right? But I like that, and it was really interesting to me.
Yeah,
But I think part of it is that because you play so deeply as the character that you actually wrestle with those decisions. I think that it would be easy to just cast it off as just
Right.
another decision that you have to make to take
well,
the game
yeah,
forward.
if you're looking at the game as just really a series of quests,
Of mechanical decisions, right? It's
Then-
yes or no, or
Yeah.
I'm going to do this or not. But
but I mean, then you run into line of winning.
right, but that's why
So-
we said in episode 1 of the podcast, lo these many moons ago, right?
Yeah.
But there isn't a way to say that I finished Skyrim if
Right.
you're playing this way, right? Because you're just existing.
You might finish a
making decisions,
concept or let it run its course, or maybe even get bored or tired of it.
right?
But yeah,
But
I mean,
you can take it and wrestle with a decision like this and actually have an explanation other than I had to choose something to get out of the dialogue.
and hell, if you really
Right.
want to get creative and you want to retire the character, but you still like it, you can still. I mean, there are different
Yeah.
mediums that you can use to continue,
Right.
whether it's writing or recording or whatever.
I was just
It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
What I really like about this too is because I was live streaming it, I had this great opportunity to kind of, interact with viewers as I was making these decisions. And in my last live stream, I live streamed on Saturday, and I did 5 hours, and some really kind of cool things happened. And people who were there and actually watching it can kind of attest to how the game presented me with some pretty wild things, and they got pulled right into the storyline beautifully.
Awesome. Nice.
So essentially, after leaving the Soul Cairn, then it was making a beeline back to Castle Dawnguard, Fort Dawnguard.
All right.
On the way, I stopped at the player home, unloaded a bunch of stuff, did a bunch of crafting, got some levels, stuff like that.
Right.
I think at that point it was I really wanted to make sure that I took him to Fort Dawnguard. I mean, going to Fort Dawnguard as a vampire, you know that there's going to be negative consequences, and it would really be easy as a player to say, I already know what's going to happen when I go there, so why bother?
Right.
So
right.
First of all, you have to go there to advance the quest, to keep the quest going forward. But it was also really important to me as a role player to have the experience for the character of having the people at Fort Dawnguard reject him. Mm-hmm. That was important. So we went there, we talked to the Moth Priest, and we said, hey, we've got all the scrolls now. He told us what to do next. And then I sought out Isran because I really wanted to have that experience of Isran calling him a monster and sending him packing.
Right.
And so we did that. And at that point, you kind of get the impression that, okay, my lot is firmly cast with Serana right now, and we are definitely on our own. And if this vampire threat is going to be dealt with, it's going to be because we do it. Because these Dawnguard people are not about they're too small-minded to understand what the root of the problem is. All they care about is getting out on the roads and slaughtering any vampire they come across. That's all they care about. They don't really seem to understand that that's not going to solve the problem.
Yeah, kind of like the vigilance.
The vigilance are the same way. Yeah, the vigilance are the
everything's
same way.
so black and white that
the
decisions are easy.
They miss the whole point, right? And of course, as this is happening, he's going through the stages of vampirism, where we're starting to see him, thirst for blood.
Right.
One of the things that I did was I discarded all the food in his inventory except the raw meat, and.
Hey, I've got some of that to sell you.
Yeah, do you? A lot of it.
I've got a lot.
Is it the bloodiest meat in the Reach?
I don't know about that, but it's very raw.
Yeah. So, yeah. At that point, we headed out. We hit. It was interesting. Of course, you don't replenish health as easily in the sunlight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Depending on what mods you're playing with.
Right.
Got attacked by an assassin on the road. And, of course, he's getting attacked by many assassins on the road, but he's been attacked also by assassins that were specifically labeled as vampire assassins as well.
Really?
Which is interesting.
That's kind of cool. I don't think I've run across that.
But he's being ambushed all the time by assassins, by patrols of roving vampires, by vampire assassins, by vampire travelers. I mean, he's being...
Just can't get a break.
Yeah, I mean, he's being ambushed constantly, right?
Wow.
Just going for lunch.
I know,
man.
and in those situations, he generally does really well. I mean, he performs really well as a fighter.
Right.
But we got attacked, and I made the mistake of kind of sitting back and letting the assassin come to me, and I took more damage than I should have, and I'm not regenerating health.
Oh, right.
And we're running down that
during the day, I assume.
Yeah, we're running down that, bear-infested road by Riften. And so I start thinking to myself, and this is in the context of the live stream, I'm like, oh, what would he do at this point, right? We're going to look for someplace we can go inside and we can rest and we can recover health. right?
Right.
I could use a potion, but he's like perpetually low on potions, like all the time. And that's a function of Wildcat. I mean, Wildcat Combat Overhaul has me burning potions all the time.
Oh, right.
You know, to stay alive, because the battles are so decisive. I can finish a battle in one strike,
Right.
but my opponents can finish a battle in a strike
exactly,
too.
Exactly.
So if I miss a block or something, man, I take a lot of damage.
That only amps up being ambushed.
Yeah, I mean, it makes the ambushes really a serious deal. And so right there is Treva's Watch, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's a fortress, and there's like 3 people camped outside, and they're trying to take it back because it's their family fortress. And if you walk up there, they'll make a deal with you and say, hey, if you can get in there and open the gate, we'll come in the front, and we'll take them from 2 sides.
Yep.
You'll see this, and I'm going to release this episode tomorrow, I think. Wow, did I get spanked really hard inside there? Like I replayed the intro battle to that, I don't know, 7 or 8 times.
Wow.
In the live stream, and trying to figure it out. And because I'm running OBIS, there was an assassin inside there, a woman who was wielding daggers in light armor who was invisible. And I didn't know she was there, of course. And I'm charging into battle, and I took down an archer the first time. I felt like I was doing really good, and then suddenly, bang, she one-shots me, and down I go. Yikes. And this happened time after time after time, where she was one-shotting me, and
dagger to the kidney.
That'll do it. It was at that point that Strudel made this comment, like, maybe what if you go outside and try working your way through the fortress from the top down? And I thought that seems like a good solution, right? A good strategy.
Yeah,
so,
I keep doing the same thing, and nothing's changing. So.
Well, I feel like I gave it every possible shot I could with
Treva's Watch.
With Treva's
Watch.
OBIS is, what is it?
Organized Bandits of Skyrim.
Organized Bandits in Skyrim, yeah. What it does is it organizes the bandits into factions and then gives them special gear and abilities. And so you can run across some bandits that are really high level, like they're really, really know what they're doing. That's why in the past I had some really difficult battles with, the Silver Hand, right?
Right.
Because I ran into a Silver Hand who was clearly a better swordsman than Raiden was. I mean, clearly, and I had to pull tricks out to try and kill him. That's OBIS at work. Well, in combination with legendary difficulty and Wildcat. Yeah. So it's brutal. Just brutal.
Yeah, that's a rough combo.
But we got through Treva's Watch going top down. Eventually, I got to that bottom room again,
right.
And Miss Assassin was there, and it took me 4 or 5 tries to kill her then too.
Wow.
But got through that. And one of the interesting things that happened along the way is I got into a desperate moment in a battle, and I was slamming potions. Just slamming potions to try to survive. And I went to slam a stamina potion and actually accidentally drank a skooma.
Oops.
And I realized it after the battle was over.
We'll give you a little bump.
And things calmed down. I realized what was happening. And then we kind of had this discussion, and I said, you know what? Let's do this as a role play device. Let's say he takes the skooma and realizes that consuming the skooma does something to ease his blood hunger.
Okay, dulls the senses a little bit.
It dulls the senses and makes the blood hunger not so difficult to take, right? And so decided to use that as kind of a plot device. And so now we're kind of in this process where he's had a couple other encounters. He's found some additional skooma.
All right.
He's kind of come to the conclusion that skooma helps him fight the bloodlust. And so skooma is worth getting his hands on, and that bandits tend to have it.
Nice.
Yes, they
right?
do.
That's an
And
advantage.
so, yeah, he's been kind of going after that. So, and then the ironic thing is we got down to that bottom room, and the other cool thing that happened is when I finally killed that assassin, that invisible assassin, she happened to be a wood elf, which gave me the last bit of Bosmer blood I needed.
Perfect.
It filled out the 5 sets of blood that I needed. and then we went straight off to Septimus Signus. So we
Nice.
got the Augma Infinium,
Very good.
and we've invested all the levels in Warrior, I want to say.
Cool.
And then after that, made our way back up to the Mage College, got 2 more levels in Restoration training, hit the 60 I needed, and now we're good to go. So,
And he just answered the question about how did you get the other 2 levels.
Yeah, there you go.
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I had a choice, right? Once I got the Augma Infinium, it's going to give me 5 levels in every skill in whichever tree I select. And
Right.
so the choice was, do I go Mage or do I go Warrior? In the end, I decided to go Warrior and went back to the Mage College and got far enough along in the Mage College stuff so that I could go and get some Restoration training. And
Okay.
by that time, I had accumulated enough gold to be able to afford 2 levels in Restoration, which
Perfect.
got me to the 60.
All right.
So that's where I'm going to stop as far as leveling Restoration goes. But I've also made a point now of setting up Okado's recital, and I've been giving him some innate Restoration abilities using Restoration
right.
spells in Okado's recital,
Cool.
which has been cool. A lot of that stuff is defensive, but we also talked in the live stream about how what we're doing with that is it's kind of a reflection of this idea that leading up to the point where he goes into the Soul Cairn, he doesn't cast any spells, right?
Question about red water skooma.
He would drink it. The red water skooma would probably be even better, right? But
A lot of iron.
I think
That's it.
what
Just
we're
hasn't
seeing
been
coming up
filtered.
is a lot of change, right? He becomes the vampire, but there's the negativity associated with being a vampire. But he's learning how to curb the hunger using skooma. And then what I'm also saying is becoming a vampire has unlocked his latent spell-casting ability. So now that he's a vampire, he's able to cast restoration spells. And I like the irony of that as
That
well.
is, yeah. I was going to say
Right?
that's an interesting juxtaposition.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, we had to make this decision, right? Up until that point, he had never cast a restoration spell, and everything that I was pursuing were passive abilities.
Right.
And at some point, I wanted to sort of say that he was learning how to cast restoration spells, and it was kind of like, what has changed that would unlock that? Well, he went to the Soul Cairn, he became a vampire. As he's acquiring this hunger for blood, he's also gaining power.
Unexpected career progression.
So I think it's important.
happens.
And it's very cool. So I like the direction it's going because he's becoming a much more complicated individual.
Oh, yeah.
And
Really, ever since
yeah.
he stepped foot in the Soul Cairn.
right.
Yeah.
And now
Or rather,
we're
out.
now we're in trouble, right? Because we're at that stage where he is a maxed out, full on starving vampire,
Oops.
which means he's at his highest level
And
of
everybody
hunger.
hates him.
But yeah, the first time that he sets foot inside a city, he's going to be killed on sight, and he's going to be attacked.
Mhm.
We haven't gotten to that experience yet,
Okay.
but we're going to get to that experience.
Are you running any vampire mods? I don't recall.
None
None
right now.
Okay, so
None right now, but I may introduce one in the next
all right,
couple weeks.
sweet. So, at some point, if he were to be cured of his vampirism, I would be curious, or will be curious, to kind of see and hear what happens with his skooma addiction.
Yeah, I know that. I mean,
What
he's really potentially shaping up to be a very tragic figure.
Mm-hmm. Assuming
Because
that he gets
I
cured
could
of the
see
vampirism
right
and
now
doesn't
that
stick
it
with
it's dulling the senses, and it's not as big a deal. But when those senses come down from their heightened state,
Yeah.
that skooma would just be a horrible experience, yet hard to kick.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely has that that element of tragedy waiting to
Yeah,
happen.
I mean, the thing I'm thinking about now is how do I play out the skooma addiction to really make it feel like something that he is slowly losing control of. I mean, it starts out as a thing where he's saying, hey, I can take this and it helps with the hunger.
right,
But eventually it's going to turn into a thing where he's going to be, I need skooma now.
right. Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's going to be a point where either you just kind of amp it up and take it when you don't really need it because you think you do, or
Yeah.
I don't know. start marinating your raw beef and
Yeah.
skooma.
Skooma.
Exactly. Well, that's what,
It's,
you know,
it just gets a little bit of a sear on it with that.
you know, it would be very easy to say, well, oh, he's a vampire now. How come Serana's not giving him a bunch of advice on what it means to be a vampire and how to get around this stuff? But the way I look at it is, I think of, you know, Serana's experience of being a vampire and being an original daughter of Cold Harbor might be very, very different than someone who's been infected, who's lived out their life as a normal person and has become infected.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily think that Serana would really truly understand what it means to be that kind of vampire. So the way I'm kind of playing it right now is that Serana is doing what she can to support him, but doesn't really have all the answers. And so as he's going through his personal struggles, becoming skooma addicted, trying to fight this temptation he has to feed on people, she doesn't know exactly how to help him at all times, which in certain situations leaves him to try to figure it out on his own.
Right.
So for me, that being in that mindset helps me a little bit. Otherwise, it would be very easy to fall back on this crutch that, oh, Serana's a vampire. She'll just tell him everything he needs to know.
Well,
and you know.
yeah, but also, as you've mentioned, his relationship with Serana isn't always the greatest either. So
I know
he may not actually even listen to what she's saying 100% because, you know, with the opinion that she's not giving him all the facts anyway,
or trust her, you know, yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean,
so
he's demonstrated previously that he doesn't completely trust Serana because he feels like she's holding things back from him. So
I could see that being a part of why
definitely
he went lean on her for that experience. But I think what you mentioned with her being with Cold Harbor and all that too is also a really good point,
right?
And that her viewpoint is going to be way different than someone who contracts the disease after a life of not having it.
And he's first of all, I mean, he, in terms of game time, he's probably been an actual vampire for maybe a week, you know, and after a week of having this experience, you have no clue, right? I mean, you look at your stats in game and your stats tell you that you're 25% better at illusion. But, you know, as a person, you're not saying, geez, I feel 25% better at illusion. No, you know, and that's the thing. He doesn't cast illusion spells, so he would never be able to say, geez, that seemed more effective.
Wow, that was great.
Right?
That was about 0.25% better.
So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to play through this idea that he's learning this as he goes. Like, suddenly he realizes that the cold doesn't bother him as much as it used to. And now suddenly he's realizing that, wow, I just got bit by a skeever, or 27 skeevers, and nothing negative happened to me.
Right. The wolf scratch or whatever.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, so he's immune to diseases. He's immune to poisons. I
could see him picking up on those more physical, more obvious traits. Yeah, for sure.
Right. But as much as I despise the whole, I'm not a big fan of the vampire lord power in game.
No, it's not my thing.
I don't
either.
like it, but my plan is to use it as a plot device.
Oh,
okay. When we get to the point, well, what it does is it's like a polymorph. It allows you to turn into this creature that's like a vampire lord. You look like half man, half bat. You can kind of float above the ground and cast spells,
special powers,
all this kind of shit, right?
Really?
And I see that as being something that I would use as a turning point, or, you know, a pivot point, I guess, in the story, where if I felt like I needed to shake things up, that's when he would kind of somehow, you know, discover this power. And what I'm doing is I don't have any point in mind when I'm going to do that. I'm looking for the game to present me something that would make it
a trigger,
sure. Right?
Yeah.
And so my thought is, maybe that is a natural reaction he suddenly has when he's attacked by the townsfolk in a city, right?
Sure.
Boom, he becomes the vampire lord and is like, what is this?
Right.
And he becomes this animal thing that helps him survive that kind of situation.
His Hulk moment.
His Hulk moment, right? But then
so long as he's not doped up on skooma at the time, right?
Well, I don't know.
Might be.
Or maybe because he's doped up on skooma.
Can you imagine Hulk on coke? My gosh. You know, that kind of thing.
He's unstoppable now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Hulk on meth would be more dangerous, I think.
Yeah, I suppose.
So, anyway, that's kind of what I'm using that for, right? So,
Big discussion on how Hulk could react to being on different drugs. It's just,
I know. Can you imagine?
Strikes me kind of funny.
Yeah. Right? Like the Flash on speed. You know?
Right.
You know? Wow. I'm 25% faster than I was before. But anyway, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very
cool.
long description, but there are literally hours and hours of gameplay between the last session and this because I have no life.
It made up for my lackluster, so.
It's not lackluster. We're going to talk about this later.
Lackluster is not having a chance to play at all. There's not even any luster
Dude,
there.
I've seen your work schedule. That's just not even fair.
Yeah. Well,
maybe one day it will change.
Yeah, and that's what this is all about, ladies and gentlemen. It's about doing what you can. It's not about, feeling guilty about what you can and can't do.
Yeah,
all it really is we're trying to lay out some kind of a framework that can help you think about your characters differently and just frankly have a good time.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what's about, And prior when we were doing levels and that kind of stuff, it was just because things are so quick at that part of the game. But I mean, we jettisoned those the other week or the other episode just because. At now it's just okay, we've got foundation, so let's just run with it and have a good time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that ends our discussion here for Character Craft. We are going to move on. We're going to move on to Community Craft after these messages from our sponsor.
Here at Lost Barrel Brewing, we have a long tradition of crafting only the finest in ancient lagers. Great brews begin with great ingredients, and Draugr Lager is made from only the finest grains and hops, aged for thousands of years. Every batch is brewed with ice-cold water drawn from the deepest caverns below the earth, checked for body parts, and triple filtered through fairly clean burial linens, then aged for hundreds of years in elder gleam barrels. Draugr Lager is good and is not meant for barmy, soft-gutted, plug-ugly tossers. Draugr Lager, the great taste of the undead with no bitter afterlife.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to Community Craft. This is the segment of the show where we read messages from you. These are messages that can be questions, role-play quandaries, puzzles submitted to our illustrious panel here.
Puzzles.
Thrown at us, as it were.
Challenges.
Challenge.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
Classic stump the chump kind of stuff.
Stump the chump.
That's right. All right, so we're going to get into some things here. Now, we only have, Matt, 3 or 4?
We have 4 today, Stu.
Okay,
4,
we got 4 questions we're going to go over. And then when this segment is over, we're going to go kind of into what had formerly been the homework section, and we're going to talk a little bit about the future of Unbound and what we want to do going forward.
The section formerly known as homework.
Correct, correct. As we get into high-level gameplay here, we're not quite so worried about homework. We want to talk about what we're going to do next, what the future of this is, and what you can expect in future seasons with regard to possible topics, format, length, all that kind of stuff. Okay?
And insofar as Stu doing the rest of the podcast as Roger, I don't think that's probably going to happen since I believe you need to talk tomorrow.
Yeah, I do.
At some point.
Kind of needs to.
So
yeah.
I don't think the vocal cords will take that very well.
Yeah, I've got a big webinar going on Wednesday that I've been planning for 2 months, and if I walk into that not being able to speak,
sounding like Roger,
it will
only
be
doing
bad.
it as Roger. Yes.
Yeah, I'll just do the whole.
Welcome to the webinar.
What do you got, about 15, 20 minutes of Roger in you at a time? Is it?
Yeah, I think
about it?
Yeah, about 15 minutes, and I'm completely toast.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and then it's pretty much I got to rest my voice for a couple of weeks. But he's great fun in short bursts. I do love Roger. So, all right.
Let's get into question
Let's
number
get into
one.
it. Let's go, Matt.
From Karn114. Character's name is Derzol. Roleplay question. I feel like we're going around the big wheel of question types. Roleplay question.
You guys are so good at that.
Dark Brotherhood assassins attack pretty much every player character after a certain point. Most characters wouldn't want to allow to keep that happening. Allow that to keep happening. However, many characters neither want to join the Dark Brotherhood nor are willing to kill
Grelod. Yep.
In order to get to Astrid in order to kill her and launch the Destroy the Dark Brotherhood quest. Killing Grelod in cold blood is something many characters are not willing to do, even if she is a psychotic hose beast.
That's a fantastic phrase.
Awesome reference.
Psychotic hose beast.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that.
Somebody's from the Great White North, I think. What are some ways around this predicament? I would be open to roleplay rationale, console commands, mods, or really anything else.
All right.
So long as you don't become a psychotic hose beast.
All right.
Well, no one wants that.
I know, right? Well, there's always, since mods are in the mix, there's always Dark Brotherhood for good guys you can do.
What?
Which will get you around.
Is that like Dark Brotherhood Light with underwater basket weaving, or
there's,
what?
There's a couple mods that change or give justifications to things like the Thieves Guild and the Assassins Guild, that kind of thing. So I personally have not played any of them, so I can't speak to it too much, but yeah, they are out there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean that would be an option. I'm also kind of a firm believer that if interestingly enough, we sort of talked about this in my last live stream. It wasn't really anything I planned to talk about. I initially brought it up as a joke about how once I have done a quick save, that everything leading up to that quick save becomes part of canon. And we talked about this as a concept.
Everything up to the quick save?
Right. I mean, as soon as I save, I'm committing something to story.
That's true.
In essence, right?
An interesting way to look at it.
Right? So
instant canon.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about that because up until that point, I can replay an experience over and over and over again until I get the outcome I want. But when I quick save, it's committed to story.
You should get a little tag to put over your F5 key that looks like a cannon.
That says
add
commit.
to canon, commit,
Yes.
Commit to story. So I think that one of the things, and this isn't exactly the same, but a related concept would be you got to decide what's in canon and what's not. So if you decide that you want to, in essence, kill Grelod off camera to continue the story, there's no reason at all that you can't do that and say that someone else killed Grelod. I personally, that kind of stuff doesn't bother me at all, but that's because I come from a mindset where if I was telling you a story and you were watching one of my stories on YouTube and I wanted to give you the impression that someone else killed Grelod, I just wouldn't do it where you can see it. Obviously, I've got to do it to advance the quest.
You didn't see me do it. How did you
but
do it?
that, if you're the kind of person who can sort of compartmentalize that a little bit and say, here's the stuff that I consider to be out of canon for this character, but I want the quest to move forward, then you can do things like that and just kind of skip them, right? But if you have trouble with something like that, then you've got to come up with some other reason. You can always manufacture reasons that will help provide the motivations you need to do certain things. Now, the thing with Grelod is she is a nasty hose beast, and if you go into that place and if you sneak into that place and listen to her talk to the children and listen to what she's doing to the children, you can come pretty darn close to making a case for a death sentence for Grelod.
Yeah, she kind of helps you along with a lot of justification.
Yeah, so first of all, use a mod if you want to use a mod, but also investigate Grelod fully and make sure you completely understand who she is as a character.
Russell Brown notes that there is a mod that you can report Grelog to the guards, and they'll come to arrest her, and she'll resist, and the guards will kill her.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, that I like.
Problem
I
solved
like that,
if you
yeah.
have the moral quandary, right?
That's actually kind of brilliant.
Yeah, that's terrific. That's a great way around it. So there's ways
Yeah,
you can get
use
around
a
it.
mod like that, or maybe
Yeah.
you just say that's what happened.
Right.
To your
True.
point earlier, but I kind of like that would be
Yeah.
kind of fun.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Oh, no,
I
it
don't know.
wasn't me. It wasn't me. It totally wasn't me.
I think it's a great idea to try something, because the Dark Brotherhood quest line, in my view, is the best quest line available in the game. And it's a shame not to have the experience because you have a moral objection. So there are ways to get around the moral objection, right?
Here's the culmination of Character Crusade, years of podcasting. It's okay. You should have the experience. Go for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just because you have a moral objection, you should still go ahead and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't let morals and scruples
Get in
stop
your
you.
way.
All right. That's crazy shit right there. So, yeah, lots of different ways to do it. If you're playing in a situation where you just don't have access to mods, that's the point at which you got to use your imagination and decide what's going to be in canon and what's not going to be in canon, and just try to remind yourself that as you're stabbing her to death in her bed as she sleeps, that it's not really you doing it.
There you go.
Well, what are
I feel absolved.
I feel like there is a console. You can actually take over another character, right? Via console.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe you console yourself into another NPC, and they go and stab her.
Oh,
to
there you
death,
go. You can
like
do
a
that
guard.
too. Yeah.
I don't know if that would
To
work.
go get their sweet roll, right?
I don't know if that works or not.
Oh, yeah.
I know
because
that
I don't know. Yeah,
TC will allow you to take control of an NPC and
but
make
I don't
them
know
move.
if you can actually
But I don't think you can attack anyone.
or do anything.
Okay.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, so.
So,
But
never
you could
mind.
still use it to enhance the experience of making it feel like someone else.
Right.
There's
Well,
no
that's
reason you
true.
can't do
That's
that.
true.
Yeah.
Just thinking out loud.
Out of body experience.
That's what we do here,
We think out loud,
for better or
and
worse.
Sometimes
then we
there's no
think about
stopping
what
it.
we said.
Yeah, correct.
Only after it's been published.
But
to
I've
the
been
world,
doing
right?
that for
Yeah.
years. So
Yeah, exactly.
Did I say
That's
that out loud?
that's how eventually that's how eventually our podcast will go down in flames. We will say something, and then we'll get sued into a smoking hole, and you'll never see us again.
sadly, it'll probably come from me.
Probably. And then
well, in order to get out of this hole, we had to sell the 5
Yep.
pieces of equipment that we had in order
Yeah.
for them to take everything that we
yeah,
had.
and then Matt and I will throw Joe under the bus and go on our merry way.
Thanks, guys.
It was all him. It's all him. We
Yeah.
were jealous of the pipes
Yeah.
all along.
It was that mostly Irish, English, German guy who did it. That non-Swede.
The non-Swede.
With the
Yeah.
Swedish
who had
last name.
51% more Neanderthal than the others in the survey group.
Yeah. Hey, Strudel just noticed your butt scratch shirt.
Tis butt a scratch, or like Stu said, if I cover it up enough, it just says butt scratch. Thank you, Stu.
Yeah, sure. I live to serve.
We try to bring the T-shirt game up a level just about every time that we're here.
We
Stu,
try.
awesome Lego Star Wars shirt. We have
I don't.
the Freighter, whatever that crazy thing
Millennium
is.
Falcon.
I know
It's
what
the
it
aluminum
is.
Falcon.
The aluminum Falcon. The what? The aluminum Falcon.
Falcon.
Who's they? I love that stick.
It's great. All right, what do we got
A
next?
bunch of kids? What?
Bunch of teenagers blew up the Death Star. All right, I think we've I think we beat that
Are we at
question
the
to
next
death.
question? Next question. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, next on the docket. Right. We have from Mom Jill. Ooh. Gospodinov. Okay. Character name is Vinin Ramshackle. Hang on for a second here. Roleplay question. I like that. Someone else said, I'll take roleplay question for 400, Alex. Okay. Hello. First time. Incredible
must be
joy writing to you
phrased.
guys. Thanks for writing, by the way. We really appreciate it when everyone submits these questions because,
We
for
do.
the guy who hasn't played for 2 weeks, it gives me something to do here. Wanted to ask about a character who has a mental illness, maybe dual, maybe even triple personality disorder.
Ooh, my.
Anyway, these personalities don't collide among themselves, but work together in order to achieve one goal. They have a big difference in appearance, so they can deceive everyone of what they truly are. Should I strive to make the other personalities refer to each other as if they were themselves, or an entirely new being that's trapped inside them? And whether or not I should make this character believe that these personalities are manifestations of like former lost ones like family, friends, or other influential figures. Thank you for your time.
Yes.
I like any of those options.
I
Actually.
kind of do too.
Should we
Yeah.
break them down a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Let's start at the top.
Break it on down.
They have big difference in appearance. I think that's kind of an interesting challenge. Break it on down now.
I think that's
Uh-oh,
cool, though.
Oh,
Is it different
He's really going
wardrobe?
for
I
it
mean,
over here.
I'm wondering how it would be to wake up in the ward. If you have all of this wardrobe, how do you know which character's wearing which wardrobe? I think that it's actually kind of a neat way to do it.
Well, once you decide, then the personality in charge, makes
Always
the
gets
choice.
to choose.
put on whatever
You know?
appeals.
Look at all the stuff
Yeah.
that I've got. I think this is what's
Yeah.
right.
Personality B hates his hair in a freaking ponytail. Get that.
No
Take
capes,
it out.
right?
Yeah, that kind of thing, right? That's certainly a great way to sort of start to illustrate what the different personalities would be.
Another, I think, an interesting, and this would be really difficult to do mechanically in the game, but I think would be an interesting take is to mix the genders between the personalities.
Oh, that could be interesting as well. I agree.
Like I say, I don't know how you would do that physically through the game mechanics, but
There's got to
You
be a
could
mod that
role-play
you
something on
could,
that.
Yeah, you could role play it, or there's got to be a mod that would allow you to do that.
well, I mean, you could switch your genders through the race menu if
Right.
if you're playing modded game,
Mhm.
but I don't know how much you want to play pulling up the race menu all the
Right?
time, but
yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean,
no.
we're just talking about possibilities, right? I mean,
Right.
to me, I like the conundrum that this player has because
Right.
if you're contending with multiple personalities or identities, depending on how you want to try to present it, you have kind of a situation like we've seen in some of the previous role plays where
Well,
characters are against each other. These are
Right.
are working together.
yeah,
They just
you have
may
that
not
kind
know
of
it.
the Empyrean Sumerian sort of feel, but they're not instead trying to sabotage one another.
Right.
They're actually
Mhm.
picking up, complementary, so one might be magic based, one might be warrior based,
Right.
or that kind of thing. They have complementary skill sets. So
Mhm,
We
mhm.
talked about this a little bit in the live stream too at one point, and I think one of the challenges with something like this is that if you want to play the characters differently in terms of the skills that they're using and stuff like that, being able to do that without spreading your skill points and perks so thin that you can't be effective in any of those three roles.
Right.
That's
or whatever it
that's the
is.
catch.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could still be effective if you limit the number of personalities, but I would hate to limit someone who really wants to explore that more deeply.
Right.
So I would say just be aware of that and map out your perk selections by personality and see where there is potential for those personalities to have overlapping
Kinda make
skills.
your Venn diagram a little.
Yeah,
if you will.
have them overlap, right? But maybe used in a different way. That
Right,
kind of
right,
thing.
Right.
Right? So
Same skills, different
Yeah.
direction.
maybe they all use a sword, a one-handed sword, but they all have a very different manner in which they use it.
Right.
That
One
kind of
prefers to use it with a shield, another does not. Maybe
Yeah.
one uses it for assassinations. that
Yeah,
kind
you
of
could
thing.
have a shield person, a single sword person, a spell sword person.
dual.
but At least you're giving yourself a
you're
shot
all
at
kind of in the same tree.
succeeding.
So
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Is take these different personalities and see where the like you say, where the overlap is,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and work with it that way. Then from a technical standpoint, it's a lot more doable, and you're gonna have a better experience with the character overall.
Yeah.
Be interested to know whether or not the personalities manifest themselves in similar ways each time. Is it, if you have 3 distinct personalities, does it always go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or
Right.
does it go 1, 3,
And
2,
what
3,
triggers
1, 1?
the
Yeah.
personalities to
change.
pop up?
Yeah.
Are they random, or are there certain events?
Weather related.
Yeah. You could do that. You know,
you
so
could.
what was the trigger? You know?
It started snowing. That was it. It's all over.
Yeah.
I know how they feel.
I mean, you know, usually you could point to something in their past that sent them spiraling into the psychosis.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it that you can attach to that event that you can then use as a trigger, you know?
It was that inadvertent skooma.
Yeah.
Could have been. Could have been.
Yep, something like that. And if you haven't checked it out, I would encourage you to go out to the characters section on Discord and look at this character's image, because the screenshot up there for this character is absolutely bananas.
Really?
I love it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, really, really just looks demented. I think it's
Cool.
fantastic, and it was recently added. So
Okay, cool.
let me say welcome aboard. We're glad to have you, and good luck with the role play. It looks like, I think it's a good idea. It's
Another
challenge.
one that might be a little more, another route, it could be a little more involved, is using something like Sky Tweak and then mapping out where their strengths are, and then depending on which version you want to play, you could go into Sky Tweak and modify your settings
Yeah,
for
true.
that personality. Again, it's a little more involved, but it's another option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sky Tweak is pretty simple and straightforward to use.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think it's
Just
easiest to
don't jack the wrong settings.
Do we think it's easiest to manifest this through mods, or might it be good to start with role play?
Really depends on where you want to focus, but I think this sounds like a lot of role play to me.
Yeah, yeah. Folk mainly role play, but then use
You could
mods
augment
and
it.
settings to shore it up
Right.
and make it feel even more real.
Because one of the questions that came along was, are each of the personalities self-aware that the others exist? Right. I know that personality number 3 is resident here. I just can't manifest it right now, or do they
Well,
believe, as some others, that it would just be, you would never know that this
I
one
don't know.
exists?
I could see this being something that would not be obvious, but might manifest itself as, the different personalities pick up on certain things that seem to occur all the time.
All the wanted posters that look strangely like you but have a different name.
Yeah. That could be it. Yeah.
What the hell?
My nose doesn't look anything like that.
But I think it could be interesting where the character's not maybe 100% aware of the others, and could, through clues over time, discover that,
Yeah.
this really is me. Or, I mean, I could also see it being really interesting too, that they are aware, but they just don't know maybe what sets it off or why.
Yeah.
I also like that kind of that inner being that's a completely separate entity. It's almost like you're possessed,
Yeah.
and discovering where that possession came from, and is it something you really want to try to shirk and get
Right.
rid of?
Mm-hmm.
And if you do, can you survive it?
Right. Yeah, it was good.
Dun, dun, dun.
A lot of good options in that
Yeah,
scenario.
really.
Yeah.
Let
I
us
think
know
so.
how that goes. That seems like a interesting
Mm-hmm.
challenge. And whether it's just 2 personalities or 3 or more, I think that it
Yeah, then
ends up getting overly complicated to try to keep all the stories straight. But even doing
That's
it with
where the
just 2
complexity would come
personalities would be
from,
hard.
but-
I mean,
Yeah.
you know an awful lot about being able to play characters with personality challenges, and so
Mhm.
I've never even attempted it.
Well, yeah, it is kind of figuring out how to manifest it in role play is always kind of interesting. For me, for me, it always starts with the personalities, what would be interesting, and then from there, I start thinking about game mechanics.
Mhm.
And what would I use to trigger this? What would I use to determine when I'm going to make a switch? And trying to come up, what I like to do is I like to try and come up with things that are random, so and that are tied to events in game. So rather than relying on a timer, or something like that, rely on something that has to do with an environmental trigger of some kind, and then
what would be a really interesting trigger, I think, on this one would be the nightmare quest with the torpor.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
For Vermina.
Sure.
Because you're completely entering a whole different state. You're entering that dream state. So who comes out to play on that one?
Yeah, sure.
Huh.
And do they know it until then?
I don't know anything about that quest, but that sounds
Yeah, that one's in Dawnstar. It's in Dawnstar, and everyone complains about having these nightmares, and this Daedric Prince Vermina is responsible, and she's kind of holding the town hostage, if you will, and you need to go into a nearby monastery, really, and figure it out and beat Vermina or her agent.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that would be an interesting.
It is actually it is kind of a fun little quest.
Yep.
Might be interesting to find out whether or not a quest like that, especially with a character question like this, could help either solidify one of the character players as more dominant, or
maybe
help sort of excise the demons that caused the split in the first place, or make it worse.
Talk about tempering. Maybe they get addicted to scuba to dull that personality.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're talking about here is actually very similar to what the three of us were doing with Sai Lee. With in her case, she was having these moments where she was out of control and didn't remember things.
Right.
But those moments were triggered by certain types of spells being used upon her. When she was hit with shock-based spells, it would trigger this effect.
Right.
And it wasn't a multiple personality, but it was definitely like a multiple personality experience, in that at the point she was struck, we stopped sort of tracking what she could remember.
Right.
And then she would come out of it in a certain amount of time in a different place, and we would deal.
That's a cool way to handle it, too.
So think about triggers. I think triggers are important.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. So.
Cool. All right.
Nice.
Well, hopefully that's a little bit of something to chew on.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot. Question number 3.
All right.
Comes from Strudel. Strudel. Playing Morzul. Morzul has had a productive couple of weeks. He has found his daughter. It was a homework assignment.
Nice.
Following up on the homework assignment from the Wind. Thanks, Wind. And has ended up with a small stronghold of his own. The problem is, where does it go from here? He has 2 obvious possibilities, dealing with Alduin or dealing with Miraak. Neither of these seem to fit with him. He's not an altruistic kind of guy, and until recently didn't care much what happened to others. The cultists are probably the most pressing problem for him in terms of survival. So the challenge is, what would be a creative way to prompt a fellow who just wants to take a nap because he's an old orc and wading into either of these major storylines without it simply being, let's do these quests? How do you get a want-to-be napping orc to get up and fight?
I'm kind of coming back to triggers again.
I'm not tempted to go and poke a stick at a napping orc. I don't know about you.
I'm tempted to come back to triggers. To think of a trigger. What would
earthquake?
What would spawn him into action? Relative or
having everything stolen? You lose everything.
Well, yeah. I mean, besides taking naps, what does this character care about?
Maybe the fuel is the naps.
If you can find a way to say that something that this character cares about is threatened by one or both of these entities, then it's easy to imagine a situation where he would get angry enough that he would get up off of his easy chair and do something about it. Right?
What about dealing with both? What if they're both the problem and they're both going to be dealt with now?
That could be.
At the end of Alduin and Miraak comes the ultimate orc nap.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, who knows? Maybe this is how he searches for his good death.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to sit on the side of the road with a couple dead saber cats waiting for someone to slay him.
That's lame.
He actually wants to do something notable. And
Right.
he's looking for
Go out in a blaze of glory.
Yeah, he's
Right.
looking for a way to get his name into the lore, into the books.
Yeah, I keep coming back to this idea that, we'd all love to have our biggest problem be when's my next nap. Okay. But there's always something standing in between us and that nap. Now, whether or not we actually get up
This is getting really
to do
existential.
something about it depends on how severe the threat is
Mhm.
and what it is that we love that's threatened. What is it, right? So, if the issue was that occasionally I'm going to run into some cultists. I've been able to deal with them in the past. I've killed them. They haven't been a problem. I've managed to come out of those scrapes okay. So that's not going to stand between me and a nap. I'll go ahead and take my naps, and I'll run into some cultists every couple of weeks, and I'll trash them, and we'll be done with
And
it.
it's not going to bother me.
So the threat has to be beyond the cultists. It's got to be larger than that.
Right.
So I mean that's when a character gets to high level. That's the scale you need to start thinking about, right?
So Strudel is commenting here that he's been undead, so he definitely wants to stay alive. All right, so that's something to work with. Why? What about being undead? Is that repulsive? And does Mirak or Alduin pose a threat to the larger scope of things?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is being undead so awful because you're basically enslaved in some way? Not to a certain person per se, but
Yep.
an ideal or an idea. Well, the ideal masters, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know, but maybe
Ideally.
there's that sense of not
Yeah.
wanting others to have to suffer through that same
Right.
experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I mean, what EJ mentions is kind of what was on my mind. If he's
Strudel
had
doesn't
this,
care about her daughter.
if we've had this momentous character moment of him finding a long lost relation, I mean, I think that the trick would be figuring out a fun and interesting way to create the conflict using this threat to his daughter without feeling like it's too contrived or heavy-handed.
Yeah.
And I think what EJ is suggesting here is imply the threat through dreams, to say, we're not saying that Mirak has kidnapped your daughter. We're saying that these dreams keep happening and planting the seed in his brain that this is potentially real.
This is a possible outcome.
This is a possible outcome if I don't take action. And maybe the first dream like that he blows off. But the 10th or 15th dream he has just like that,
Yeah, if it
maybe
keeps
is suddenly
recurring.
Now he's thinking there's something going on here
better
that
go
maybe I need to
handle this.
pay
Yeah.
attention to.
No more napping
So-
until it's dealt with.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the past we've seen a lot in books and TV and movies, these ideas about the reluctant hero,
Right. And that that definitely sounds like kind of where he's at.
right?
He just needs that
Yeah.
extra push. It's there. It just
Right.
hasn't quite sunk in yet because,
Yeah.
well, he's an orc, so.
And these things, like when you do these things, then of course do them in your character style,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, it's the kind of thing where, hey, the dragons come down and they start trashing people's farms and doing stuff like that, and the guards in these cities can't seem to take him down and stuff like that. So he finally does get up out of that easy chair and he's like, "You fucking guys. I got to do everything myself," right? And off he
Right.
goes, trudging off with his bag over his shoulder and his weapons, and he's off and going. And
I
he's
had
like,
nothing better to do, and I
mean,
was loving
yeah,
it.
that kind of thing, right? Or you could take more of a Godfather approach where they pull you back in, and the kind of thing where he says, screw this, I'm leaving Skyrim and I'm going to take my retirement somewhere else because of all these dragons. But he gets on a ship and tries to sail away, and it ends up crashing off the coast of Solstheim, and he washes ashore and suddenly gets sucked into this whole dream sleepwalking situation. And he's like, okay, now Mirak's directly fucking with me, and it's time, right?
Well, I'm thinking maybe even, just kind of mental canon if he would have this vision or dream that, it's his daughter pounding away on these temples mindlessly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the other thing you could do is take the approach that rather than painting daughter as a victim, say that daughter is constantly challenging him, saying, you have the power to fix this, and you won't, and I don't understand what the hell's wrong with you. And now he's driven by this idea that he's got to live up to his daughter's expectations and try to be a better person, right? Or
assuming that the daughter isn't the instigator of all this.
Yeah, or maybe the daughter goes off and says, okay, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to go after Mirak, and he's got to chase her down and say, you're going to get yourself killed. Like,
not again.
And so at that point, it might be sort of fun to take the daughter being a follower and go after Mirak together and play it off as though it starts with your character pursuing her to keep her from dying, but in the end, they take on the challenge together. Something like that, right? I can think of a bunch of different ways you could do this. The more we talk about it, the more I think of. But
very exciting. Very exciting.
I think, start with a couple ideas, and like we're doing right now, right? As we're talking, all the ideas I'm hearing from these guys spawn new ideas. I spit some out, and then they come up with new ones. And so we just kind of keep doing this, right? We're riffing on this.
It's a room full of spit. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what brainstorming is all about. It's about spit.
It's about spit.
It's a spit storm. Spit storming session. There's a reason they call it spitballing.
We're going to have a hard time selling that book now.
Yeah.
That was a good question.
Yep.
All right, on to the next one from The Wind. Character is Tyline. My character's goal is to be a sword singer.
Just a sword.
My character's goal is
I wish to be a sword.
It's just I have to be a sword singer who can summon the Shihai. Is that right?
Sure.
Okay. In her case, this will be a bound sword. She recently learned the spell and has trained when she is able in conjuration. What suggestions do you have for her to organically learn to summon the sword? From the research I have done, she should be more advanced a warrior, and I want her to skill up in conjuration and summoning the blade like she would smithing. But I need advice on what that would look like. She's currently level 25 in conjuration.
That's cool. I like it. Here's what you do. I got one idea.
Tell us, Stu.
I'll throw this out, and then we'll let these guys riff on this because
get ready to spit, Joe.
Yeah, get ready to start spitting some dope rhymes, if you don't mind. Yeah, hearing a dude like me at my age say dope is so hilarious, isn't it? So
that's really dope, Stu.
What might be kind of fun is this idea that it's accidental to start with.
Oh.
And what I would do is, if you're typically using a sword in your right hand, equip the conjuration spell in your left. And then
I am not left-handed.
Then pick something that is a trigger. So when you get into certain kind of combat, when you get, desperate at a certain level of health or something like that, when you get hit with a certain kind of spell, then just trigger it in your left hand, and say, shit, that thing just appeared, right? And
I get you.
Where you're sort of simulating the idea that it's happening all by itself, right?
So yeah, it's kind of almost like a product of adrenaline rush,
right?
Yeah,
just some sort of
whether it's a threshold of pain or excitement,
kind of a Hulk moment,
It is a self-affecting spell too. It begs the question that could this spell be kicked off by Okado's recital?
I don't know. It might be worth looking into.
It would be interesting to experiment with because,
and that remind me of Okado's recital. I keep picturing someone sitting at a harpsichord or something.
It's like a macro. It basically
it's like a macro.
It's like a macro. Yeah.
Okay.
It lets you put a spell in your left hand, load Okados in the right hand. You cast Okados and it stores the spell in memory.
Gotcha.
And then the spell kicks off automatically anytime you enter a combat situation.
You were saying that in the last podcast as well, and I just
correct.
Sanak has Okados with stone skin, so whenever combat strikes up,
you get stone
always
skin.
Cast stone skin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and
no harpsichords.
No, I don't. I'm not aware of a harpsichord spell, and I don't think
Just
there's
checking.
a bard ability for harpsichord,
Oh,
although there
okay.
should be.
Although playing a harpsichord upright would be difficult.
Yeah.
That's not very mobile. No.
Yeah, very true. But thank you for correcting me on straightening me out. All right.
You need a guitar strap for your harpsichord. Then you're fine.
A G-string
Playing the G string.
for your guitar.
Yeah,
This
course,
song
yes.
in G. That's what we're trying to say.
Yeah, I don't know what you were
The
thinking.
key of G.
Jeez, what the hell's wrong with you?
Anyway, currently level 25 in conjuration. All right.
Yeah. So that was one idea I had, just like manually kicking it off in your left hand as a response to something in the world, and doing that for a period of time to sort of role play the idea that it's happening accidentally, but eventually goes from being an accidental thing to being something that the character begins to understand and can do normally.
Yep.
I don't know.
No, I like it. I think
think-
that's a really good idea.
Joe likes it.
I do. So
Zephyr wonders if we can use conjure harpsichord.
Yes.
I'm boy, if there's not a mod out there, there should be.
There may be soon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I like the
should
idea of the accidental use in the beginning, and then whoa, hang on, what happened there?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to just kind of spin off here on a completely different direction.
Here
Just
goes the riffing.
go ahead.
just
riff,
for
Joe.
a very small moment, but so I was actually on a Dark Fox stream earlier today.
So
And
you're
one
riffing
of-
on Dark Fox?
I rip. Is that what you said?
Riff.
Oh,
Riff.
no.
Don't rip on Dark Fox.
Oh, I do that all the time. So you're going, the guy your age saying dope. One of the guys on the stream was saying either his son or his daughter was giving him a hard time for saying smexy.
Smexy?
What is
I don't know, but it's a thing, I guess.
okay?
And but anyway,
It's like sexy except nerdy.
kind of, I guess. I
Smexy.
really didn't have the courage to ask what that meant, but
Yeah.
anyway, he's like 70, so
Even better.
so
Smexy.
if the 70-year-old man can say smexy, I think you're cool with dope.
With dope. Yep.
All right.
So there you go.
Dopesy.
That's my non-wind related
Yeah.
side tangent.
No
So
problem.
it's a side quest. It just kind of fell into place.
Yeah, right? I mean,
So
so to tie it back in, you could kick off Bound Sword every time you hear the word smexy.
sure,
Which I think
Yeah.
is a very frequent occurrence in Skyrim.
it really is.
All the time.
Smexius.
Especially with the Khajiit.
Oh, yeah.
They're always
That's what they're muttering when you walk up. Here comes another traveler. All I wanted to do is talk about Smexy.
schmexy.
Uh-huh.
Schmexy lady.
Wow,
Bum, bum, bum.
I like it.
No, I think that's a really good kind of transition
Yeah.
method of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, at first, it can be sort of a character's expression of frustration, right? Like you're going into combat, expecting combat to go a certain way, and now suddenly it's like you got this booger on your left finger, you can't shake it off, right? Like where did that come from?
Where did that come from?
Yeah. But after a while, you get used to the bogue, right? And then you use it to your advantage, that kind of thing. But
I'm just going to move this way a little bit.
so, yeah,
It's like
You're on his left side. You realize that, right?
poster buddy.
yeah.
I really like you, Joe.
That's okay. I've been wiping my right hand on his knee all night.
Yeah, I know. It's just crazy. Something's touching my knee under the table all night long. So
wondering what was going on over there.
I can't think of any other ways to do this. Can you? I mean,
if it worked with Okados, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah,
that would.
If it does.
The problem is with Okado's recital, you can't control where the spell shows up. So even if it does work, my guess is, and I'm not sure that it does work, I've never tried it, but even if it does work, my guess is it would automatically pop up in your right hand. Now suddenly it's your primary weapon, and you could sort of role play this idea that you were planning to draw your regular sword, but this thing keeps happening.
Well,
I mean,
is it possible that this should be accidental?
Maybe
all the time?
You could start it out that way, perhaps, and then once you kind of get into the character's headspace and they start to figure it out, then you can remove it from Okados and then be more of a.
Would it make sense to wait until her conjuration is higher? I don't necessarily think so, but one thing that could be interesting is get the conjure dagger spell first.
Oh, and work your way up.
Work your way up, right? Like First, it's like the dagger is appearing in the left hand, and you're like, shit, what's this? And then you graduate to the sword as it becomes more powerful or something like that.
It's hard starting off with a wooden sword to start.
Yeah.
Actually, I kind of like I like the progression.
Yeah, that would simulate progression in a way.
Right.
Like as your levels in conjuration go up, your power goes up, right? The weapon becomes more dangerous, more effective. That would be very cool.
It would be. Yeah.
To maybe try that.
I kind of dig the concept, though.
The daggers also, I mean, they just look like a miniature version of the sword you eventually get. So it almost gives the impression that the thing, as it grows in power, is growing in scale.
Right.
In some way. So
yeah, that's cool. So, and other things, I guess you could do if you are concerned about the conjuration, levels, is if you have Apocalypse or something like that where you can get an item, look for an item and try to find, or something that would bump your conjuration skills as you use them to increase them a little faster.
That would be interesting.
So a ring or an amulet or whatever.
Right.
It's usually not much, especially at lower levels. If you find it, it might be like 3%, but it's still something. Kind of helps jog that ahead a little bit quicker.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting, the idea that maybe this character is sort of infested with a power that as it grows, eventually overcomes her ability to draw a normal sword, where it becomes so pervasive that eventually anytime she tries to go for a normal sword, this thing pops up and she can't. Like whatever it is that's inside her is insisting that she fight in this manner, which is kind of neat.
Start spouting off the ghost things with your, about your sword. I'm sorry. I wanted to draw you.
It's okay, maybe next time.
I had no choice. Yeah. So
what are those ghosts called?
Subjugated ghosts. Subjugated ghosts.
So you got a subjugated weapon.
They're so annoying too. The things they say are so annoying. I'm sorry. I don't want to attack you.
I have no choice.
They just sound like Canadians.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
What are you saying about Canadians, man?
That they're subjugated ghosts?
No.
Okay, well, there we go. It wasn't me after all.
Huh.
And Matt has now been evicted from the podcast.
Well, yeah, now is when the hammer drops, right? And
That's
we get this is when we get sued into a smoking
Or maybe this will be what catapults us into the millions of subscribers.
Yeah.
From Canada.
From the angry Canadians.
Yeah,
yes.
Look how edgy they are. Look at they're ripping on Canadians. Let's all get in there and show them who's boss.
I thought Skyrim was in Canada.
You and your wrong bacon.
Yeah.
That's ham.
Yeah. So that's incidentally, I found a staff that summons subjugated ghosts.
Oh, really?
And
on purpose?
I gave it.
Oh, funny.
we talked about this, I think, last time. I gave it to Serana, and she kept summoning subjugated ghosts, and they just keep
to annoy you.
They just apologize and apologize and apologize to the point of annoyance. You know, just it's so.
They're just so sorry.
They really are very sorry.
Now, is there somebody in the game that you would like to give that to that couldn't stop using it? Right? They were stuck being surrounded by subjugated ghosts for all time.
Wow, there's a curse.
Yeah,
I know,
right? Yeah, you just call that character the apologist. You just
The apologist class.
roaming Skyrim, apologizing to everyone.
But I just wonder, is there somebody that you could gift that to, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
Good God.
And Kano or somebody.
Yeah, I know.
And Kano.
Yeah, he deserves it. I'm sorry.
Shut up.
The Strudel's got it. This isn't what I wanted.
That's it.
That's what they say. But
Yet they do it anyway.
there is only one place in the game where you run into subjugated ghosts. There's only one dungeon. And,
yeah, I think you're right.
I've gone through that dungeon multiple times, and, it was confusion for me before because I went through that dungeon, and then I found the staff at about the same time, and I thought there was a glitch going on because subjugated ghosts kept appearing, and there was all this apologizing going on. It was super annoying. But I eventually figured out that it was the staff. And then I took the staff away from Goldir because he
Give me
kept
that thing.
Yeah, he kept spawning these ghosts, and I'm like, shut the F up.
What the hell's wrong with you?
And then I gave it to Serana, and she was doing it as well, and then I just finally kept it in my inventory permanently, and I'm like, this thing.
Can you disenchant them?
Can you sell it?
Yeah, I could sell
Is
it.
it worth
Oh, you
selling?
can't-
Like, is it something?
I felt like I didn't want to sell it because I'd never seen one like it before.
I have
It
never
just seemed-
heard or seen
Yeah,
a staff of
it
subjugated
it must be
ghosts.
pretty rare, but
Yeah, that's hilarious though.
yeah. So you could do a whole thing about that. I now I'm coming up with all kinds of ideas. A whole group of people that all they do is summon subjugated ghosts, called the Apologencia. like a
all-seeing
a clandestine group.
Oh, good heavens, Mr. Whack! Quick, we don't want to associate with them.
Oh, it's the Apologencia! Quickly,
Oh, I hate them.
get in the adventure wagon. Let us
The
flee.
adventure wagon.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Marl has an issue with the Apologencia.
They are a rival group to the League of Prodigious Illumination.
If they're so sorry, why don't they just stop?
Stop apologizing.
It says, "Don't be sorry. Be quiet."
Yeah. That is funny.
Penitus Apologencia. Well done, the wind.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Gentlemen, we must develop a plan to deal with this rival group, the Apologencia.
Awesome.
Oh, too funny.
Let's hatch a scheme.
Yeah. Do you remember? We always come up with ideas like this. I remember it was like a couple of years ago that we were like, I remember we were riffing on this idea of that had something to do with some kind of a Cyclops related. Do you remember this? It was like a joke that a kind of an inside joke we had on this cycloptic society of something. It had to do with something in Skyrim, but I can't remember what it was called now.
God, that sounds vaguely familiar,
Yeah.
but I just can't
We'll all
place
have
it.
to go and watch all of the episodes and find it.
Yeah,
Oh.
it wasn't. I don't
Oh,
think it was in a
God.
podcast. It was outside of a
Yeah,
podcast. It was
yeah.
in a series of phone calls where we were talking about this, and
Or text messages, maybe.
yeah, maybe so. But I remember there was a point at which I actually fooled around with making some branding for what it might the organization's logo might look like and all this kind of stuff.
Oh.
But,
Now I'm going to check email
this
for
happens all the time.
Cycloptic and see if I can find
This
it.
stuff happens all the time. Yeah.
Well, and then we launch into all kinds of
Mhm.
branded items and
Yeah, I love that. In one of the episodes of Twist's adventure, that it's Marl refers to stacks as I think it was Robard's cycloptic friend.
Drinking problem he has. This gentleman.
this is
He's having to dribble again.
no depth perception.
It's all in your beard now,
I
sir.
know.
Again, this is the
Yeah.
second podcast.
Yes.
He has a beard full of beard.
Shut up.
You got a beard full of beard. Near.
Anyway, Cyclops.
Yes.
Fascinating.
I'm
not
Tell me
finding
more
any-
about
I'm
that.
not finding any comments
Yep.
about cycloptics.
Cycloptic. Your cycloptic friend. Your cycloptic friend has assured me.
Well,
We don't have any more questions.
We're good? We got to the
submitted
end?
prior to,
I
but Russell has a question.
shoot
Russell.
Russell
If
us
a
up
person,
question.
if a character with PTSD would run away from all combat or just the things that trigger the PTSD,
I would say just the things that trigger.
I would say so as well. But
Yeah.
I really don't know anything about PTSD specifically. But in a character play like this, I think that it would start to manifest itself as a difficult thing to overcome if it was running from all combat.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that would be very hard.
Certain types of combat, certain people, certain circumstances, perhaps. But
Yeah, that would actually, and it would make it more interesting then too.
Yeah, imagine a warrior who is fighting as part of a regiment, in an army, is very experienced with traditional warfare, and then suddenly has their whole unit wiped out by a massive spell of some kind.
Right.
Yeah, almost like, the modern warrior who suffers from PSD related to artillery attacks,
Yeah.
but functions well in a normal kind of infantry combat situation, for example.
yeah, where there isn't artillery.
Yeah, maybe in the face of powerful battle mages and stuff like that, the person just seizes up, or something like that. But I agree with these guys. I think if you make it all combat, then what's left? I mean, Skyrim's pretty much all combat all the time, mostly.
Yeah, a lot of it.
You got to give
Outside-
yourself
There
some
isn't
opportunity.
kind of a can't we just get along kind
Outside
of,
of
bond,
assassinations or thievery,
That's true.
and even then,
You start to run out of stuff to do after a while.
yeah,
Right.
you only break into so many places. And
Oh,
if,
I'm just
and if-
coming
if
from
it's a
over the hill
failed-
to bring you some stuff.
if it's a failed assassination,
Yeah.
then it turns into combat.
And it very quickly.
And then
Yeah.
you could easily break it down into, if you feel like the idea of it being magic specifically is too limiting,
Right.
you could break it down further, and you
Into
could say that it's
specific.
specific types of magic attacks or specific types of magical enemies, like
Mhm.
vampire attacks are particularly traumatic.
Right. Werewolf.
Werewolf attacks are
Yep.
particularly traumatic. Stuff like that. You could even say, I could see situations, right, where a person mistakenly falls down into Sightless Pit and has to fight their way out through a bunch of Falmer. Now suddenly Falmer's a PTSD trigger,
Yeah.
right? Stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Or the carrion, not the carrion crawlers, but
Yeah.
yeah, the
I know you're
Charis.
talking about the Charis. Yeah,
The
they're
Charis.
nasty.
They are really nasty.
They can be.
I just ran into them in the
I hate it.
lighthouse.
Oh,
That was
Oh, you got in the
unpleasant.
lighthouse.
that's
Yeah.
fun.
No,
Oh,
it wasn't.
That actually is. That is a
the
fun
many
one, but
times I've tried
yeah.
to take care of it now of just
Yeah.
death and
That's
I'm going to
what that-
assume you
yeah,
haven't
death.
gotten to the end then.
The giant.
No.
Oh, you'll like the
Reaper
end.
is- Yeah.
You'll like the end.
Ooh, you're gonna love it.
So far, I have not loved it.
Yeah, the Charis are difficult. The Charis Hunter are
They
even
can be.
worse.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yep.
makes me wish I had a BFG in the game. Actually,
Yeah. With unlimited ammo.
That's why I have 4 followers.
Yeah.
I have
He's
zero
got perpetual
followers,
BFG right there.
Van loves his followers. I mean, he actually, I play him almost foolhardy now
Can you go
because
take care of
he's
that?
got such, he's surrounded himself with all these people.
Right.
Yeah.
So he just,
I must not be as good at seducing followers as Van
Well,
is.
you're not Van.
And Van and his swinging meat, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that was a good question. I like that. I like the idea of thinking about. I guess I've considered the idea of PTSD before, but never in that way.
Yeah.
And I've just given myself a bunch of ideas.
And I don't know if PTSD is something that you can overcome over time. I truly don't know, but it seems like you would have quite a backstory to create with a character in order to describe why it's even happening.
And it's kind of interesting too, because it is something that you could introduce any time, whether it's part of the backstory or halfway through your gameplay.
Correct.
Anything can be traumatic.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing.
Hell, trolls. I know.
PTSD can be triggered by bad emotional relationships. PTSD responses. So it doesn't necessarily have to be some kind of a traumatic, bloody combat experience either.
Right.
You could have PTSD that is triggered by something having to do with politics or religion or an interpersonal conflict with a family member or whatever.
Well, and what's the reaction? Is it a violent one or is it one of fleeing?
Yeah. It could be fear. It could be just loss of your sort of mental faculties. Like suddenly, you're just not able to interact, whatever it is.
Right.
So, yeah.
I would imagine that PTSD could have a source in just about anything, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could have PTSD because as a child you were held underwater too long by a friend as a joke, or you slipped off of a precipice and now you can't walk up mountain paths, or you're deathly afraid of goats or
There's
something,
anything that can trigger it. And that's kind of the interesting part of this discussion here is it is something you can decide to introduce anytime.
Yeah. I think that sometimes what we often need to do with Skyrim characters is take a step backwards a little bit and look at the character and think about what would be a real person's reaction, right? Sometimes I think we take for granted that this idea that, Skyrim is a place that's just filled with so many magical creatures and strange events and stuff like that we act as though a character would be completely unfazed by a powerful nobleman transforming into a vampire lord before their very eyes, which is a freaky thing to see, right? Now,
oh yeah, I read about this once. Just
hang
on a minute, it'll go away.
Yeah, I mean, when your character has that experience, there are only a handful of people in Tamriel, of all the people in Tamriel, who have ever witnessed what a vampire lord actually looks like.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about that, somebody who has never had that kind of experience, I mean, they see a vampire lord who threatens them and then transports them, teleports them out of the castle. I mean, that is a person I could see running for that boat as fast as possible.
Yeah. I'd definitely be.
Yeah, I mean, I would too, right? And so you think about that in terms of when you read the story or watch the TV show or movies related to the Hound of the Baskervilles, right? You see all of these people who are actually completely struck in total horror by the Hound of the Baskervilles. Right? And what is it? It's a giant dog. It's a big ass dog, or whatever. But
really, really big dog.
Now take that into Skyrim and imagine, how does a person react if they're chased through the woods by a werewolf? I mean, holy cow, that person would never be the same again, I wouldn't think, no matter how crazy the world is.
Yeah.
No
So facing a dragon for the first time, now you have this dragon-related PTSD, and dragons show up, and you're supposed to be the dragonborn, and you're running for cover, and you can't move. Like, that kind of thing.
And the fact that, especially in those cases with the vampire lord, how nobody would ever believe you.
Yeah.
Right? You'd be carrying that with you for the rest of your life, and it's
Right.
likely that no one would ever know what you're talking about.
Yep. Exactly.
Like that poor woman in Riverwood who saw a dragon.
Yeah.
I saw a dragon.
What do you want, Ma? It's the dragon thing again.
Oh my god. Well, can you imagine how it would change your game though if you played a character up to the point where the dragons start coming to life, right?
Mhm.
But then your whole thing at that point was that whenever you encountered a dragon, you ran away.
Yeah.
Right? You ran away. Get the game to the point where the dragons are all over the place. and then be the guy who runs away.
That'd actually be really hard.
So I think what you do
Where every
is-
direction you turn, you see dragon on the map. And you're, no,
Yeah.
Where
well,
can I go?
what you do is you play it through far enough where they can become the dragon killing warrior, but then you have, you wait for that opportunity, right? When you have that dragon battle that goes really, really poorly and something really scary happens. Hopefully by that point you're far enough down the line that the dragons are in full bloom, right? And you've got them all over the place. And then at that point you switch on the PTSD role play.
Yeah.
And now suddenly when the dragons are showing up, you're running away and you're cowering in fear. And when that what are the fancy the fancy dragons that show up later in gameplay where they look more like your Asian style dragons, where they kind of have the flat bodies and the what are those called? I forget what they're called. It starts with an R. Revered dragons.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a revered dragon that shows up by that place where all the bandits are straddled across the road there. Robbers Gorge. Yeah, it shows up by Robbers Gorge. Now suddenly, you're trapped inside of a little hut as the thing attacks and it's flying overhead waiting for you to stick your head out. And you're looking for a way to sneak down through the tunnels below and escape and not have it see you, right? And just, you're running your ass off, right? Trying to get away from them. And sometimes they pursue you and you got to keep running, and sometimes they let you go.
And it could be as much as, not even a bad dragon battle, but maybe just the first time you see one resurrected, which would be cool as all hell, yet frightening. Hell no.
Yeah.
You got Alduin hovering around and raising these dragons that just materialize out of these mounds.
And with the Alduin quest line, as you advance in levels, they intentionally kind of put you into situations where you're going to see those dragons rise from the grave multiple times.
Right.
So, you can use each one of those as a trigger to sort of
stepping off,
intensify the effect or whatever.
Right. Yeah, maybe you just don't believe your eyes the first time, but after the third or fourth.
Yeah. Oh man, that's Then you end up with Biff the Cowardly Dragon Slayer, to figure out how to play that. But
how do you overcome it?
Well, I think it's sort of neat to sort of turn the game on its head and say, I'm going to do a whole playthrough where the entire focus is on being non-confrontational with the dragons. Like maybe what my goal is to pursue another quest line entirely, but I'm going to have this whole side thing going on where I'm just going to use the Alduin stuff as a way to emphasize this problem that the character has.
Right. Because
the dragons keep reoccurring, I know that periodically I'm going to be faced with this and I'm going to have to role play it.
What if the character's totally okay with the dragons? I'm not here to kill the vampires. I'm not here to do. I'm here to make sure all the dragons come back.
Well, that could be.
Yeah.
Makes it very difficult to take Skyrim in a regular direction, I suppose. But I mean, you could wait for all of the dragons essentially to be re-resurrected, and then say, "Hang on for a second. Now I got something to show you."
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that kind of depends too on how the game mechanics work. I know.
Right.
You'd have to be that thing like we talked about earlier where you kind of compartmentalize the adventure.
Yep.
You got to kill the one at the Western Watchtower. Because if you don't do that, nothing will happen.
Starts.
Right.
Yep.
But once that's done, then the question would be, how does it progress from there? I mean, certain ones you got to kill in a certain order.
But that could actually be the genesis of the PTSD, and in some cases, just because you're emotionally fraught with the results of PTSD. It doesn't mean that you can't act.
Right.
It just may mean
you don't shut down.
Yeah.
But
Right. Or what you could do is say the dragons are okay. Your character's a brave warrior and understands that they need to kill the dragons, but the effect of absorbing a dragon soul is utterly soul-crushing and painful. Right? And so they go into the battle.
He avoids it so he doesn't have to experience that.
Right.
Yeah.
But then they're pushed, right? They're pushed to the point where they have to kill dragons to save people, but they go into those battles with all this trepidation, knowing the pain and suffering that's to come afterwards.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, which is kind of an interesting concept, too.
Yeah, actually, I kind of like that.
Yeah, I like that, too. Because then you can still kill the dragons, but the PTSD is maybe set off by what happens after the dragon dies.
Right. Maybe
You
there's
know?
a certain series of events that happen after each one.
Right.
True.
And then now suddenly think of it, Mirak comes along and starts stealing dragon souls from you, and you have this sense of relief. Like, you take it. I don't want it.
Right.
Now suddenly Mirak looks very different.
He does, but then again, he seems to laugh it off. So what the hell's wrong with him?
Exactly. So maybe your pursuit of Mirak is more about curiosity to figure out what is he doing that allows him to survive this without the ill effects, right?
Yeah, for sure.
There you go. Look at we keep standing this game on its head over and over again. I love it.
Well, thank you everybody for your questions. 4 submitted, some in the chat. We're not doing a lot of prep work in these questions before we have our podcast here, so please do submit them. We just don't want to miss anybody's question and backstory and all the detail you want to share with us. So in the future, more questions, submit them so that we can get all the detail.
Yep, questions are important. You can see how your questions spawn a lot of great discussion.
Kind of drive it all.
So they really do. They drive it all. So what I would encourage you to do is certainly submit questions if you have questions that pertain specifically to your character and your situation, but also submit questions if you just come up with a concept that you think would really start an interesting discussion. Throw that out there too.
Sure.
Because that's the stuff we really want as well.
The what ifs are as much fun.
Yeah,
They
so
are.
much fun.
And then we make 10 or 12 different what ifs out
That's
of
right.
that one.
It can happen.
Yeah. What ifs
Occasionally.
beget what ifs. All right. Well, that was a really great community craft. I love it. Now we are going to get into the homework section of the podcast, and we're going to talk a little bit this time around about the future of Unbound. All right. So we are obviously at episode 5, which may or may not bring us closer to the end of this season. It obviously does,
Well,
but how close?
It'll bring us closer. But.
It always, everything does. So here's the thing that we're thinking about. You may have seen that I put a poll out there on YouTube this morning, just asking about how many episodes we want to devote to each season of Unbound. And when we say season, we mean kind of a set of episodes that all deal with the same topic. When we originally came up with this idea, we had this discussion about going 8 episodes. If we do 8 episodes, that allows us to do 3 seasons a year, which means 3 different challenges, okay? Now, I posed the question to these guys over the last couple of weeks about, is this something that we want to stick with, or do we want to shorten it up? And I have a couple of different reasons for that. One is that as we get into the higher level gameplay, we start to see the steam go out of things a little bit. And speaking just personally for myself, I would like to see shorter seasons. I'm a proponent of a 6-episode season, but that is something that's, I think, very specific to my psychosis, which is ADD. And this idea that I love Raiden and I'm loving playing Raiden and I can't wait to play him next, but I'm already thinking about what's coming up next. And when I think about that, and I think that I've still got 3 more episodes to go, 6 more weeks before I can start to execute on that stuff, and make it happen, I'm a little bit worried about us running out of steam. And I think one of the things that we've seen here is, we've gone from having 7 questions to 6 questions to 3 questions, right?
Yeah.
And I think that these characters naturally run their course, and when you start to hit levels 30, 40, 50, that's when you're at this point where you have to decide, do I continue to play this character, or have they run their course and it's time to move on? My feeling is going 8 episodes is pushing it, but I'm not the sole arbiter of what we do on this podcast. So we put the thing out there.
I totally thought he was.
You thought I was the sole arbiter of this whole thing?
The harbinger.
I'm the harbinger.
harbinger.
Yeah, I'm the harbinger.
But I think there's something important about the question, though, right? There's a pacing question.
Yeah.
Some folks, I think, like me, are going to run into challenges on timing to develop a character as fast. I would be interested to see how quickly you actually could develop through a 6-episode season on one of the characters. And I think it would be an interesting challenge for all of us to try to do it in 6 weeks rather than giving ourselves, 8 or 6 episodes rather than 8 episodes. Rather than trying to definitively choose everything for the future, I think it'd be interesting to see what would happen if we gave ourselves an accelerated timeline as a role player. What does that do to the way that we play? Maybe we find that 6 isn't
that's an
enough.
interesting
What happens
perspective,
if it's 5? What if 5 is the magic number, right?
And it does depend a bit too on what the topic is that we decide on too. So some have a little more longevity because they take that much longer to get rolling. Others maybe not so much.
Yeah.
I think this random start is really something that could go either way, really. It kind of depends on what your luck of the draw was, and if it's something that you connected with right away, or is it a character idea that just never developed because there was just something about it that it just didn't strike the right chord. But it was all about the idea of dealing with that uncertainty. Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt there.
Two T's in there.
To me, it seems like there would be some excitement and some enthusiasm about, okay, now everything that we just did in 8 episodes, now we're going to shorten that experience,
compress,
right? Instead of a jog, now we're going to have kind of a sprint.
I mean, for me personally, I could go either way with this, just because I have not really invested lately a ton of time into the character.
Yep.
But I can also switch gears pretty quickly and get reinvested into something new as well. So, I can certainly go either way.
Sure.
Well, we can also get a little bit of perspective on this too. If we go 6 episodes, that equates to 3 months of playtime for a character.
Yeah, at our pace, yeah.
I mean, that's 3 months. That 3 months is a pretty good amount of time to invest in determining whether or not a character experiment is worth your time or not. And I think one of the problems I have with the longer cycle is the longer the cycle is, the more it emphasizes the gaps in between people in their levels. So if you get into week 3 of a 6-week cycle or a 6-episode cycle, and you decide that you don't like the character, and you're gonna drop off or something like that, and you're gonna wait until the next experiment.
Right.
Now you've got a significant amount of time that you have to wait before we reset. I feel like in order for this to be most interesting and most invigorating, they got to be quicker hits. So what is the right amount of time to invest in a character to really fully explore it, versus what is too much time to where we end up with big gaps and people languishing for one reason or another, where they either feel like they're way too far ahead and they don't know what to do next, or they didn't like the character a couple of weeks in and gave up on it.
Right.
So,
two, this is all about, exercise in character in the game itself, in play.
Yeah.
Just because we might move on to something
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean you have to stop.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you hit your stride with this random character and you want to keep at it,
Oh, by all means, yeah.
Right.
we're not
Oh no, I'm
dictating
sorry.
what you
have
can and
to
cannot
delete
do.
all of your saves.
Right.
So
Start over.
this is really, you're not. No one listening to this is bound or unbound
I
to
see what you did there.
follow every series to the T.
No.
Pick the elements you like.
I like the idea that we could put in place a framework and a challenge that would get somebody started
And
on a
that's
great
really what
character
it's
idea
a framework.
that they would play to level 81.
Yeah,
I think
no
that's
kidding.
fantastic. And they may start up on season 2 with us and try something experimental, but as they're doing that, they're also getting quality play time in the character they created for season 1, and they're just keep going, right?
Sure.
So
But a 12-week program versus a 16-week program is very different in sort of digestibility of
right.
storycraft, right?
And it gives us a nice round, 4 experiments that we can do every year using that framework, which
Yeah.
I think is nice.
Experiments.
And some of these experiments are going to resonate with some people and not others. So the more we can do, the better, because we may have 5 or 6 people who think season 1 was the best character they ever created, but we've also probably got 5 or 6 other people who will think that the character they created in season 3 was the best they'd ever created.
Yeah.
Right.
But you won't
So-
ever know until you create that
there.
next
Right.
character.
So I mean that this is I'm not trying to be heavy-handed. I'm just looking at it and saying I'm at a point where I feel like I'm running out of steam, and I know that other people are running out of steam, and maybe it's time to think about wrapping our brains around the next
Something
experiment and to keep rolling forward.
Right. Well, yeah, and as we mentioned, if you can always come back and try this, and then maybe a few more seasons in, now we've got new things we can apply and start stringing them all together.
Right.
And you can always come back to the earlier seasons
So-
and
Yeah.
sort of
No,
follow along that
I
program.
think what it really is coming down to is that we're all kind of on the same page, and that
Yeah.
we're going to reduce this down by a couple episodes and
Yeah.
Okay.
and start thinking about the next big thing.
I think that's good, because where we're at right now too is, Joe, you've managed to get your character to this point up to level 27 without doing any major quest lines in a situation where you struggled mightily for a while.
For a little bit, yeah. Okay.
And my character is currently at level 34. So there's not that much difference between our characters level-wise.
Not really.
And we're in and around that sweet spot, I think, of level 30, which
Right.
to me is about right. Starting the characters at the beginning of the season at level 1, working towards episode 6 in level 30. To me, that seems like a good model and plenty of time to test ideas and have good fun with it. So
Right. Yeah.
The
yeah.
Wind would like to know if season 1 will still conclude at 8.
I think the consensus is no. We will probably end it at 6.
Shortened 6.
yeah.
So the next episode will be the final episode of season 1.
It's an important clarifying question as to whether people needed to invest another month in these characters.
Just a couple more weeks, I think.
yeah, 2 more weeks.
It's really about wrapping things up.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to do then is, understanding that our next episode is going to be the finale of season 1, what we'll do is we'll put some stuff out in the announcements on Discord, letting you know what you need to do to prepare for the finale. Because what I would like to do as part of the finale is I'd like to kind of celebrate everybody's character experiments. And I would like to dedicate the entire episode to reading a paragraph about everyone's characters and acknowledging all
be
the characters that were created. And I think, in a 3.5 hour podcast, if everybody were to submit to us one paragraph about their character, kind of describing that character's journey, and then specifically what you got out of it.
That would be so awesome.
That would be fun, and it would give us
great.
a lot of material to read through, and we could respond to, and it would be just, I think, a great way to sort of validate all the work that you guys have done to participate in this exercise, because you've been wonderful about it.
Will you consider interpretive dance?
I won't. Not in the room this size.
How about kabuki?
Kabuki, sure.
Okay, all right.
That's a little bit more reserved, just in terms of space required.
All right, good. Just checking.
I do like kabuki.
We could green screen it.
Oh, I love kabuki masks.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yes, I think so far as storycraft goes, as people are thinking about how far they've come even this far, just writing a few sentences about the journey until now, we could end up with hours and hours of stuff by the time we get to episode 6.
So hence, I think we need to acknowledge the difficulty that will be present in wrapping up a character in a paragraph.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what we need to do, though. I mean,
it is. If we're going to give some time to everyone, it's the only way. It's the only way.
Yeah.
So
what we would do is ask that you limit it, and we'll figure that out.
So yeah, summarize it to a paragraph.
But I think that is a great way to celebrate what everyone has accomplished and what people have learned. And I think a really cool season 1 finale would be able to spend, 3 hours or so going over your characters in that way, and then we end the finale by announcing what our new challenge is going to be for season 2.
I think that's a great idea.
We rock it into the next season and start thinking of new stuff. So to me, that seems pretty exciting.
Yeah. No, I like it.
Yeah. So what that would basically mean is 2 weeks from now, we'll have the finale. We're going to put some announcements out on Discord. It means that 1 month from now, 4 weeks from now, will be the kickoff for season 2. So we'll put the announcements out there, but also make some adjustments in the way that I have the schedule set up so you can keep track of what's happening when. I'm excited.
And yes, if you write a paragraph 3 pages long, we will consider reading it.
Not.
But remember that we can edit on the fly if we feel we have to do that.
Yes, we will.
Generally, it's my understanding that a paragraph usually doesn't take up a whole page, let alone
that's true. I
know I'm not
reading,
a professional author or anything, but it's my understanding that multiple paragraphs make a page.
I would agree with that. Some of the stuff that I was reading recently, auditioning stuff for, someone was writing not only very challenging dialogue in a long paragraph that didn't have punctuation and quotes and stuff like that, but it was like 2.5 pages of no paragraph breaks. Right?
Challenging.
So if I may, yes, if you write a long entry, I would love to see it. Perhaps you can send us the entire entry and put a note as to which part you would like us to read to everybody. That would be great too. If I could please ask you, for everybody's benefit, we want to make sure we don't completely murder the name of your character. So if you can help us with pronunciation,
little phonetics
that would
is
be
always
great.
Goes a long way. So
we want to hear it. We want to read these. We want everyone to enjoy your story, and we're happy to help present it.
We'll get this up on Discord and other places too.
Yeah.
But so really,
there's no reason why we can't put these things out there as the individual, Pocket Odyssey entries once we get them all read out as well, if that's what people would like.
Sure,
possibly.
Maybe.
So, character name, your screen name, how you want to be called out. Phonetics, if you think there's even a small chance we're going to mess it up, and then a paragraph up to maybe half a page.
Do we want to maybe put some of these recommendations out on the Unbound wrap up?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll put it out. We'll put all of this stuff in the announcements text channel, so you know what the parameters are. And we'll try to do that in the next day or two so you can get started thinking about that. This will give us a nice opportunity to sort of immortalize your characters in the podcast as well. And it'll give us an opportunity to show future participants how many people got into the first season.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Nice.
What about people with screenshots of their character?
Well, we've got screenshots out there. Continue to upload screenshots on Discord. Get your final screenshots in. and those will be the screenshots that we include in any future archive. So what I would like to do is set up an archive that just has this paragraph information about your character, and we'll link to a screenshot or something like that. That shouldn't be too hard for us to do. There'll be a little bit of a labor involved, but if we're doing that kind of labor once a quarter, it's not so bad. And then that's another way that we can kind of immortalize this stuff, because along with that, I think what we want to do is have pages on the website that are Unbound season wrap-ups, where a person who hasn't engaged in this, who's coming in the future, can go there and they can see, here are the play rules, here's all the people that did it, here's all the podcasts that went with it, here's all the screenshots that came out of it, here's all the Let's Plays that came out of it, all of that stuff, all kind of in one nice package. I think that would be a real testament, for people who are trying to determine whether or not they should get involved in future seasons. So I think that'd be cool.
Looking forward to seeing all of them.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I think this is a winner, so it's official. We are going to go with
6
episode seasons now.
Yep.
All right.
6.
So let's do this.
6,
Let's wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for listening. For more about story and character, visit charactercrusade.com. We've got all kinds of links out there for you to avail yourself of if you want more information. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, we always do appreciate that. That's going to be patreon.charactercrusade.com. If you go out to the website, you can find links to the YouTube channels, all that stuff. You can find the podcast on iTunes there as well. Unbound.charactercrusade.com is always going to get you to any archives or play rules for whatever season is most current. So we strongly encourage you to do that. You can also find us on social media. You can find us on Twitter at CharacterWonk, Facebook.charactercrusade.com, and of course, our community, our lovely and beautiful community at Discord.charactercrusade.com. We want to thank you all tonight for hanging out with us and sticking with us through this first season of Unbound. We will see you here in 2 weeks for our Season 1 finale. Good night. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you all had a good break. Ours was a relief, among other things.
More relieving than
yeah.
We
yeah.
kept streaming.
we did.
We never stopped.
It's a different kind of live stream.
Welcome everyone to CharacterCraft. In CharacterCraft, we go over our character experiences for the last 2 weeks. Enjoy.
Better take the undead a real number one. Huh? What? Wagga wagga. There we
Later, all.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Oh my gosh.
Yes!